Are you tired? Tired of depleting keys? Tired of waiting and the wiping in the raid? Frank, what have you done here? Tired of wiping in the raid? Tired of having no swag? Well, these are issues of the past. Introducing the first ever PoddyC merch collection. Hoodie, done. T-shirt, done. Socks? Also done for some reason. Purchase now at poddyc.com. This will have no impact on your performance as a WoW player. Hey, welcome to a very special episode of the PoddyC. This week we have two exciting things, two equally as exciting things, or for you to decide which is more exciting. We have a special guest, something we do less often than we probably should on this particular podcast, but we've been saving. We've been building all of our street cred up to buy one exceptional guest instead of having 10 mediocre guests over the past 10 episodes. So please, everybody, give a warm welcome to none other than Scarizard.
Hello. Don't let Dranos fool you. It was super easy to get me on this. You just DM me and I'll hang out.
Okay, good to
So it's that easy, huh?
Well, Frank is PayPaling me, but the rest of you, it's very easy to do. Yeah, that's under the table.
Yeah, Frank does have this, anytime he wants to interact with me, there's a fee involved as well. I think he's probably got that arrangement set up with most of his friends.
I'm worried he's taking a cut, actually. Now that we're talking about it, I think in the episode, I'm worried. But that's for y'all to figure out. What's the other announcement, Dratnos?
We're also launching PoddyC merch. That's right. That's
poddyc.com.
Or you can think of it as
poddyc.com.
OM, depending on how you want to, remember that in your head.
Wait, is that what it was?
Yeah, well, that's what it stands for. That's what the URL stands for. That's how we set that up.
poddyc.com.
Yeah, that's right. And you can get things like this shirt with the extremely alarming pixel art version of my face. I don't know if you guys can see. The eyes are very like crazy eyes going on that thing. So we got some hats and stuff as well.
Yeah, I was like, that's
Max is
just
wearing
you,
one
man.
right now too.
You were like a guy looking exactly like that, being like, this is concerning, but up here, this is fine.
We've also got socks as well, so you need some new socks. With my face on them too. We got all kinds of stuff. So yeah, go to the website, buy some of our stuff, pay us a lot of money. Let us, pay the exorbitant booking fees associated with guests of this caliber more often.
I am so tickled by these Dratno socks, and I feel like I want them because how does any conversation result from that? Where someone's like, oh, who is that? Is that like a family member? You're like, no, it's a guy I listen to on the internet. And they're like, oh, how would I know them? It's like, you wouldn't. That's
well, okay. Maybe at some point I become more famous. I become mainstream famous.
And I care about you, and I need you to know that 100% of the people who know who you were would recognize you from the socks. And there wouldn't be, like you've already got the claim on the market, is what I'm trying to say. But no, I'm getting them. I'll buy them. And you should too. At
poddyc.com.
Well, no.
Nope, actually that was perfectly right. Good job,
Scarizard.
Scarizard.
Okay. Well, I'm so sorry. You should get them too at
poddyc.com.
Thank you.
Appreciate patrons.
Right.
Yeah, and patrons as well. You guys are great too. Yeah. Also,
equally
great.
Let's not
three equally great things. So before we, I guess, get into what will invariably be, I think, a very rambly episode, I think we should start, just in case people don't know who you are, Scarizard, with a quick introduction of who you are, what you do / have done in the past.
Yeah, what I do now is very different, which is to say nothing. I'm mostly chilling. No, my name is Patrick Scarborough. People might have known my career up till now as Scarizard. I worked for 5 years on League of Legends as a game designer, doing balance for the games. I worked with some champions, I worked with some reworks. I wrote patch notes. I hosted videos on their YouTube. I did voiceover I did like everything. I did a little bit of everything over there. Then I streamed full time for a few years. And then I most recently worked as a systems designer on the rewards team for Blizzard on World of Warcraft, which is how I came to know all of these people. And then very recently, right before 11/2, dipped and I'm enjoying a nice long vacation before I inevitably have to get another job.
Yeah, I respect that. How much? So we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, of course, but
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to establish for, the listeners as well, like what are some sorts of things that you maybe don't want to talk about, and also if that falls into this category or not, what ended up making you decide to leave? Was it just like you've been there enough, want to jump to something new, or?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess this is something because I certainly don't want to scare any of you off or anyone from criticizing Blizzard or the WoW team or like we can't talk about it or something, right? I think I don't really have any beef with anybody that works on WoW. I loved my team. I was thinking about it, and this is funny that I'm going to say this, but I was like, I maybe had like beef with 3 people ever in my time at Blizzard. Which, if any of you listening have jobs, think about that and be like, how many people at your job do you like? And for me, it was like 99%. It was like everybody was awesome. If you meet somebody for the first time and you walk over to their desk, you Slack them, it was always great. So the WoW team is incredible, right? It was really, really good. I think my issues were a little bit me and a little bit them, right? One of them is I was just going through a lot of, I guess, mental health issues that stemmed from a lot of, how should I put this? I think that the trajectory that the current WoW team is taking has a lot of consequences. And I think that I am one of those consequences, if that makes sense. I think the speed at which content is being made and the direction in which the design is being pushed are things that made me feel overburdened and kind of left behind, combined with the fact that, like, I don't like living in Irvine. I don't like living in an expensive apartment. Sorry that I'm probably going to soapbox about like unionization and workers' rights and things like that. But I think it's one of those where the day-to-day of working on World of Warcraft is a dream and incredible, right? And I think the circumstances surrounding it that dictate what it is that you get to do, the timelines that you have to do them on, is the kind of thing that is really squeezing everybody. And I started to hit the point where all of those things building up, as much as I want to be like, yeah, it's bad, Blizzard has to change these things, right? It was really affecting me and my work and my ability to get things done. And I was like, hey, I could see a few months in here, like really souring my relationships with people that I love and that I really care about, right? Like not even just like someone I respect, but like people that I was like, yeah, I would work with you again in the future, right? Again and again. And arguably had already reached that point, but I think I felt it was going to get worse. So I was like, okay, I need to refocus on my health and like chill and take advantage of the privilege that I have, with a bit of savings built up, and also preserve the future of my joy working on games, but also working with a lot of these people, right? So that's the I have no idea how long that was. I have no idea how comprehensive that was, but hopefully that answers your question somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't know. It's always okay. Well, I guess one thing that I've always found when talking to you is you are the person that I know the most who you'll like aggressively credit one of your people that was on your team with everything that you talk about whenever we're talking like off camera or whatever. You're always like, oh, this was this person's baby. Like they're so great. They did this, and this, and I'm so happy for them, and they're turning into such a great designer or whatever.
Yeah,
So
it's incredible. I think I'll stop soapboxing here because I want this to be an actual conversation. But I think game design, and I want to focus on design specifically, but this is true for everybody that touches game development, right? Is game design is a discipline where when you are doing it right, people are not noticing it, right? You have, I think, a lot of y'all who can say like, oh, this particular like WoW boss or like dungeon encounter or something is like really well made, right? But a lot of people, they might feel that elation in the combination of the music and the visuals and everything. They might think that's awesome, like they saw a movie, but they don't think about all of the hours that went into making it or all the people that made it happen, right? And so it is kind of a thankless job in that if you do it poorly, everyone is on your ass all the time. If you do it really well, none of it comes to you, and I think a lot of people are trained, and I think it's a good instinct, but I think it kind of gets run away from people, which is a lot of people are trained to say, well, I shouldn't want to take credit for anything that I've worked on, right? Because it'll make me look like I'm a bad teammate. And so the only solution then is you have to loudly hype up your teammates, because if they're not going to do it and players are not going to do it, then you're going to be ended up in this cycle where 1 or 2 or 3 bad patches or bad features in a row beat someone down to the point that they're like, well, I don't know that I can do this anymore. And, games in general, and a lot of creative disciplines, but also games very specifically, is a discipline where when you lose someone, they often don't come back, right? It is not a secret that people in the games industry don't get paid as much as many other private software firms. So if someone really burns out, you could lose the generational mind that was supposed to make the next big thing, or made something that was incredible, and they're just gone now, right? So that's why I'm all very, very passionate about that, and hopefully all of you should be passionate about it too. Be nice to your game developers. You don't have to like everything they do, but it should be a little nice.
Yeah, I want to touch on that point that you mentioned about how people don't notice good game design. And I actually find that to be so true, because there have been many of my favorite games in the past where I'm just like, man, I don't know why this game was so amazing, but it was such a good game, man. Yeah, it's like a lot of people try to capture that exact formula, and they're trying to figure out what exactly made this game so great. But
yeah,
it's like you mentioned, like people just don't realize when a game is made extremely well, and oftentimes when it's the opposite, they will be very vocal about it, and it becomes a problem.
Right, and then it's like witch hunts, or you want to target someone. Sorry, Max, you're gonna say something?
Well, I was just gonna say it's like reviews on an apartment complex.
Okay.
no one rents from somewhere and it goes just fine, and then they leave a review saying, "Oh, well, this place was fine or great.
The plumbing worked."
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just gonna be you missed your. They were not like really gracious when you missed your rent or something, and you had a bad interaction, and or maybe they were just genuinely bad. But you're only going to see bad things on there because of the way it works, right?
Yes.
I think game dev probably feels a lot of the same way, where you make a great game, people are like, dude, this game owns. You have a bad patch, and it's like, but you don't feel that. You have a bad patch, or something about it doesn't work, and it's the end of the world for people. There's definitely a lot of very specific situations I can remember with bosses where a boss is nerfed at a bad time or something, which the person who made the boss had literally nothing to do with the timing of it, and it was just everyone wants this person dead. It's like,
right.
how do you want to keep continuing doing your job when you make good content, but just some random shit happens,
Yeah, and I mean that stuff's tough too, because sometimes those are mistakes that can be chalked up to one individual, and it's like there should both be, one, an ability to almost shield or obfuscate people from being witch hunted, but two, there should be safety for people to fuck up and make mistakes that will teach them a lesson that they will carry forever, right? I think anytime I get to talk with people who had been at Blizzard forever, or people who've moved on, right, something that I feel very strongly, and I kind of wanted to ask all of you about is with the faster content cadence, right? I understand from a business perspective why it has to happen, right? And I understand even, as secondary businesses, if you want to think of yourselves as content creators, right? And how, if stuff is happening in WoW, you have stuff to talk about, people have stuff to watch, you have stuff to do, right? So it's good inherently for that stuff to be coming out faster and faster. But when you do that, you create a situation where it's harder to take risks, or it's harder to mitigate when those risks go poorly. Right. And so I think you end up having those situations where people are just really scared to do anything wrong, or when they do something wrong, it's well, we have to move to the next thing so quickly. Right. And so it's something that I get really worried about, legitimately. Sorry, that was a bit of maybe a missed segue there. But
no, it's a good point, because so you brought up when the first question I lobbed at you, at one point in the answer, before it got to where you ended the answer,
sure, yeah,
you brought up part of the thing that caused you to leave, or that was involved in your leaving, was the cadence of content, right? And bringing back to that, I think I know among the WoW community, in particular, in the past 6 months, there has been a lot of sort of grumbling about is this too much, too fast, or
yeah,
and it's weird because the things that they've been, it's not a lot of the things that have come out. So if we look at the past 6 months, right, it's we had Liberation of Undermine came out, I guess, a little bit more than 6 months ago. And then it's Turbo Boost, Delve Belt, Horrific Visions, new patch again, Mob Classic comes out. And then there's we've got the new Turbo Boost immediately in the future again. And then that Turbo Boost has a weird time gate associated with it, where the turbo boost itself coming out, and then the dinars and the crest uncapping portion of it are now separated.
Happened later, yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird because like those aren't, I think those are things that would be a lot of work for, in particular, somebody on the rewards team doing a lot of work around those things.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
it's
it
not
is.
like a whole set of like a patch level effort or something like that, right? Like it's like it's a lot of work for a few people rather than the whole WoW team on those. But is that the, like, on your end, was that what was causing you to feel that, or was it like the expansions and the patches even on a faster cadence?
So, I mean, it's certainly part of the soup, right? Because there's two things you didn't even mention in that, right? One was Nightfall, which I still haven't even engaged with it. Maybe one day I will.
Oh, and Dastardly Duos. How could I forget Dastardly Duos?
That was the other one, and I know how you could forget it,
Yeah.
and that's because I hit the point because I'm human like anyone else. Later in a patch, I stopped playing. But for me, it was usually because now I have to truly lock in on whatever the next thing is. I have to really beat my head against it to make sure that it comes out. And so I was excited. That was, of the whole list of everything, that was the one I wanted to do. And by the time I came back, it was gone. And I was like, what do you mean? Like that's so weird to me to have that content almost vanish, right? When I'm like, but somebody put a lot of effort into making those bosses or making little fights or more ways that I can engage with other people, and it just kind of evaporated. So I'll say it definitely feels like they are experimenting, and I appreciate that, with this. But I do think, I think it's a little endemic of the problem of like, well, there is a business incentive for World of Warcraft, if we want all the stuff that everybody agrees is good, to stay good, to keep as many people playing as possible, right? So even things like the new Turbo Boost, right? When I saw it, it makes, I didn't know about those plans necessarily, like exactly how they are presented now, but it doesn't surprise me at all, right? Because if you have to imagine, so many people probably logged in when Turbo Boost happened. It probably brought them back for like a week. They made their guys huge, and then they dipped again immediately, right? And this is another way to try and be like, well, can we get you to stay a little bit more? Because in the end, when your wall of like apathy or too much other shit going on is too big, like you're gone, right? You're gone until the next content drops. But you can't blame them for trying, but it does mean that they have to try a lot of different things in a lot of ways that inevitably is not as satisfying as what many of you players of your caliber would call new content, like a new raid or a new dungeon or something like that, right? So yes, I think more for me, it's that I think this speed makes individuals take less risk and makes the individual content have a lower chance of success, of being memorable, right? And that's tough because you don't want to say like, hey, what if Overcharged Delves was someone's baby, and be like, is anybody going to remember that in 1 year, right? We might have remembered that if you compared it to an older WoW era where there were fewer things happening in a patch. You might remember, oh, that probably happened when that was going on. But imagine this content cadence 3 years in the future. Will you remember anything that happened in a patch that wasn't the raid, right? Or the new season coming out, right? So it makes sense why they have to do it, but I fear for the consequences down the line and what it means for people who get a real kick out of saying like stake in the ground, like I worked on the mega dungeon, or I helped make this thing that is like a moment in time that people will remember, that I can feel really proud of and get to put a lot of hours into,
When you said earlier that like we're trying to push that this much out in this much time, is that kind of everything, or is that more like, oh, we're trying to do the expansions? Like if Alpha's coming out soon, and that means the expansion's coming out like pretty early next year. Clearly, like that's on an earlier timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're not going to announce anything like that. But like, what does that look like in terms of? Is it more like, okay, there's a lot more content in 0.5 and 0.7s? Like, what really made you realize there was just like too much going on?
So I don't want to do like and I talked about this earlier, I don't want to necessarily like air out Blizzard's dirty laundry or anything like that, but I'll say I think this is one thing in particular that makes the job of a rewards designer very difficult, right? And puts a lot of undue stress upon our team in a way that is really tough, right? Because it's not to say that everybody's going to have these problems, but I'll say this, right? So when 11.2 is being made, you have people who are working on that raid, right? If we want to talk about the Encounters team, right? Who I love a lot. Shout outs to all my Encounters designers. They're all great. Especially, Matt Villers for incredible Demencius. What a way to wrap up the raid. We can talk about the raid. We can talk about all that stuff later. But I just had to say, I was messaging him while y'all were pulling the day that it got killed, and I was like, dude, this is so sick. And he was like, I have not moved for hours. I am like glued, anxious, excited, watching. Incredible, right? That's got to be an amazing. So let's say you have encounter designers, right? And 11.2 is coming up. So you've got a bunch of people who are working on the raid. You probably have some people supporting that raid. You have people, there's delves going on, right? So let's say you have all those people. But Midnight is also coming out, right? And Midnight previews and Midnight Alpha and all that stuff is not going to be happening far behind. So you have people who can say, cool, let's tackle this patch. And some people who are like, neat, I'm going to start thinking of and making all of the dungeons so that when we get announcements and Gamescom and everything, you can actually see like, oh, those are people doing it, right? Sometimes they're playtestable, sometimes they're not, but like you see that, right? So you have teams who are able to say, cool, let's do this. And then you move there and you move there, right? Rewards is one of the few teams that has to kind of stop at every patch, right? There's not, at least right now, not really a feasible way for us to say, and even when, I don't want to make it sound like, we're fucking cave people that can't figure out like basic production schedules, right? But even when you have someone who's like, that guy's going to work on this patch and that guy's going to work on this patch in the future, right? Every single patch, there are on the ground issues with, think about War Within. Think about how many times we made big changes to crests, or situations based on player feedback, right? Or things like the turbo boost, right? Which has now happened, soon to have happened twice. Right? These are still big undertakings that take on, if not one individual's time, also a lot of the team's time in terms of like, let's all talk and let's all make sure we get this right. So you have a team that is like, neat, every single thing that's coming down the pipe, you have to be considerate of it, right? The whole, God, I could go on forever about the Dinar situation in a lot of different ways, right? But you'll all recall it was on the Raid Renown because that's originally how that's what it was meant to be. But while you're working on this, here comes Turbo Boost as a thing, and they're like, well, we need a thing for this, right? It's like, okay, well, how do we? You have to design your thing first, and then you have to support it as new information comes out. And then as new information comes out, and then as new things are happening. And so by the time your stuff arrives, you already have plans for the next few months that might reflect poorly or make it harder or weirder. So something has to get nerfed or changed or pulled before launch so that it makes sense in the world a few months after, right? And that process is iterative, and I don't think you can particularly change it, but it does mean that unlike a quest designer who might say, I'm going to make my quest for this campaign and it's shipped and it's gone, right? The game's systems and the game's rewards and how all of you play it exists in perpetuity, week after week, in your great faults and everything, right? And doing keys and doing raids, right? So I would say my team was greatly affected by every time, you get a call and you hear or an email that's like, okay, this team is doing overcharged delves and there's going to be a belt. And now you're like, okay, well, how are we going to make the belt work with the cloak that we know is happening and with the ring that people still had? That kind of conversation, right? And that happens, and you get into those pinches all the time on top of the already slow, fast pace where you have not that much time to work on any individual thing. I really don't mean to be, crying over here and being like, everybody has to be so sad about this, but more to say that I think that's one of those pileups that can occur that I don't think people really think about. But I think more and more people are also starting to feel the results of these, right? The effects of these, right? How long, the belt is still not nerfed on live. And that's a little crazy to me, right? They were like, we're going to nerf it in 8 weeks. And it's like, but wait, why though, right? Like, it's a problem now. And again, I can't speak to why they made that decision, but between like other sorts of stability or like, people, a lot of people have been complaining, rightly so, that like more bugs are happening. I think it's easy to see. I don't know if WoW can handle this speed, is what I'm saying. And if it can't, I'm worried that all of you can't handle this speed. But can they go slower? Will people like that? Right? That's kind of the inevitable. It might be easy for all of us to say in our little podcast that we would like that, but I don't know if people would or could stomach it being, 10 weeks instead of 8 weeks or 12 weeks again, or even just going back to a more standard patch cadence, right? I don't know that the genie might be out of the bottle on that one.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm actually really glad you brought that up because we actually had this exact conversation a couple of times in the past we mentioned about how, oh, like, why are these patches coming out buggier than ever before? And we speculated that, like, oh, maybe it's because the content cadence is much quicker than usual. That's like something I brought up, and we were just like completely speculating, right? Like, we don't know any better. We're just gamers on a podcast. And so for you to bring that up, like, that actually does make a whole lot more sense, because that was actually one of the things I wanted to ask you. This patch in particular has felt a lot buggier, especially with class bugs. And I mean, so it's kind of funny story. I was just like browsing around in the Frosty K Discord, and I saw you chatting in there.
Yeah.
You were asking for Frosty K advice in Raid or something. You were playing Ride or Frosty K, I believe.
Yeah.
And they were telling
I'm a
you
ride
how,
or die. I'm a horse guy. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, Ryder's amazing, but yeah. So like, you brought it up how you were playing Ryder, and they were telling you how, like, oh, like, Ryder is actually not very good right now, and it's because the tier set is like quite literally bugged, where the 20% increase obliterate damage just doesn't even work, and that is like, kind of like mind-boggling how these can exist for such a long period of time. And in fact, like, some bugs
I'm boggled,
exist for,
man.
like,
Trust
years.
me, I'm boggled. I would be.
Yeah, so
that was one of those things I would, if I would get on Slack and I would be like, "Hey, what's up? What are we doing?"
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, no. Brief aside, I want to say people in class discords, Frost and Death Knights are usually nice enough to me. If somebody comes in asking how to play their thing, don't just say do the other hero talent. You're psychopaths. What's wrong with you? Right? What do you? I didn't.
So
yeah.
true.
No. This was the context for this was for obvious reasons. When this patch came out, I was super checked out. I was not really playing at all. I think it was like a week and a half into the patch that my team was like, "We're gonna throw you into a 9 in Eco Dome." I was like, "Sure, fuck it." And that's when I learned that, like, the extent to which Frost had been reworked. And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna vibe it out." And then I hit a point where I was like, I should maybe make sure that what I'm doing in my brain makes sense. So I just went to be like, can anybody log review this? And they said that. And that's when I learned that it was like, hey, not only do you have sickos being like, just play Deathbringer. It was like, well, yeah, this line on this tier set just doesn't happen. I was like, oh, that's insane, right? And, I could only speculate, and I don't want to get too into the weeds on that either, right? But when I think about that, it's like, well, do I, Patrick, know the individuals responsible for fixing that bug? Yeah, I do. On the other hand, I'm like, do I know the kind of stuff that team must be under to make, I'll put it this way. Apex talents probably were in a conversation before I left. I had never heard the words Apex talent. I didn't know they were going to do Hero Talents Plus or anything like that. So I have to imagine that those people are absolutely face grinding to get a lot of stuff for Midnight out. Do I think that excuses it? No. But to me, it seems like it would be a probable way. It's like the same thing as this belt. It's like, well, why wouldn't you take away focus a little bit to just nerf the belt? We had done it for the circlet. We'd done it for the amulet. We'd done it over and over again, right? Which, again, I don't think that stuff is good. But God, I hate the here's a patch and here's a thing, and then it's overpowered, and we tell you don't need it, but you are going to need it. I hate that shit, man. I think it sucks. That one's for free, gamers. I'll give you that one. I dislike it. But yeah, it's like. Anyways, the only thing that I do know is that everybody's working really hard and really fast, and so to me, it's like, well, that can be the only reason then, right? Or certainly one of the compelling reasons and a cocktail of reasons that make it, why that is. I will say, and this is, and maybe I shouldn't put my tinfoil out there, because Frost is doing well, right? Like, Frost is doing fine. Yeah. This is some shit that happened on League of Legends a lot, where there was a character that was bugged, but their win rate was crazy. And it was like, well, what do you do? It was like, are you going to fix it and then, like, give Rumble like a 10% win rate buff? Now, granted, the answer is fix it and then nerf them at the, like restore them to a relative, like, functioning state. But anyways, I did get a little bit of that tinfoil. I was like, do they just not want to, like, have to figure out, are people going to, like, lose their shit if they see, hey, Obliterate does 20% more damage now in a patch note, right? But anyways.
Dude,
I mean, that is something that I've always wondered about, because, like, it's just one of those situations where I'm like, man, is it just like they don't know and we need to, like, find a way to, like, reach out for them to know? Or is, like, maybe it's something that's lower on the priority because there are just more important things to work on? Or maybe they just, like, aren't sure exactly how to fix that exact problem.
Yeah.
That's something I've always wondered about. And I say this in particular to Vengeance Demon Hunter, because Vengeance Demon Hunter did have some egregious aggro bugs for many years, and which actually got resolved, I believe, last patch. And it's been like such a blessing. But for that to exist for such a long time has been like really rough. And it's just like, you can't help but wonder, like, man, like maybe they just don't know. Maybe there's got to be like a better way to let Blizzard know about like these issues.
Yeah. And I think, I guess wrapping up this particular point, it's mostly that none of us can know, right? Nobody can know. But what we do know is that everything is going really fast and that people feel like they are being heard a little less, right? Maybe broader strokes, maybe people feel like their feedback is being heard, but it's one of those things that doesn't inspire confidence, right? And that sucks because that's kind of what you need, right? Especially moving into Midnight, right? If you want to say, like, do I think this next expansion is going to be worth playing? Do I think the one after that? Do I think they're going to bring it home on the World Soul Saga? Right? With less individual features being the standout reason, for lack of a better term, the like borrowed power stuff to say like, this is the reason to play, right? You just need faith that like, well, when I log in, is stuff going to work, right? Or when there is an issue, is it going to be resolved quickly? And the less and less that confidence is high, the more and more that it doesn't matter what your other strategies are. So I don't know. I don't think we're saying anything crazy here. Everybody knows bugs suck. And again, as somebody who's caused many egregious bugs, I don't want to sit from over on this side of the fence and be like, fuck you, Blizzard. Like, yeah, oops, like it absolutely happens. It feels like it shouldn't, but you got to fix it any way you can. But yeah, it's certainly been, I think it's emblematic to me of one of these like faster patch cycle, right? Is that things feel riskier. It feels more gambling on when you should play. And that's tough. And that's not something that people should have to do. Certainly. How have y'all been feeling about the patch overall, though? Max, do you even play a lot after the race? I feel like sometimes I feel like you'll get into doing keys a bunch in that particular season, at least as of late. But what have you been getting into?
I've just been doing a lot of stuff outside. I played the D4 season like all day, every day for like 3 or 4 days earlier this week. But as far as in WoW, I struggle to play WoW because of 2 reasons. I would say the least important reason is that I feel like a little far behind. Mm-hmm. Like we're done with the race, and any amount of time spending time on my characters before the race ends just feels like I'm not doing what I should be doing to help us win.
Right.
So just logging in 3 weeks late to a season or 3 weeks late to a game coming out that you really want to play, that's just like kind of a bummer. You'd rather like be full on from the very beginning with everyone else.
Just rip an Elon, hire someone to play your character while you're doing the race.
Yeah,
and then everyone's like, "Whoa, how is he's playing and he's doing this? That's crazy."
Yeah, I actually have a raider
to do that.
Yeah, I actually have a raider in my guild. I could maybe get to do that.
That's true. Yeah, what,
really
hopeful? I heard he's available.
Yeah, he's really good at it.
He's available.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
So I would say that's a reason. That used to be the main one. I would say another one is there needs to be a class that I really, really want to play. So like the last time I really played a lot was like Havoc DH in season 3 of last expansion. It was just like really, really fun, and I got really into it. There's classes that I like as much as that, but they're not as new.
Sure.
Especially Windwalker. And then the other main reason is this. So I like an analogy where you kind of look at sports, right? You have like this preseason, this regular season, the postseason, and then you have like the championship or the Super Bowl or whatever. But everything builds up to a point. And then I imagine when a lot of these athletes finish the Super Bowl, they're like, man, it's been a long time. I'm glad we won or sad we lost or whatever, but I don't really want to play football for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. And it's totally reasonable. So the Race to World First is this really, really weird thing where if I felt like if the race was actually at the end of these seasons, I would actually play the whole time. Yeah. But because we do this thing that all of us care about so much, and it's everything that it's everything, and then it's over. It's like we're doing everything in reverse, where like you start with the championship. And I imagine if this was true of other sports where like you did the thing that is going to define the whole season or the year or something, and then you were asked to do everything else, you probably wouldn't be as motivated to do it.
So I need you to know this analogy makes so much sense, but it is making me think about what if you did the Super Bowl first, and then every 6 weeks into the regular season, all the football players got 20% bigger. Or we started giving them rockets. You know what I'm saying? Like let's just start applying raid buffs to the football players. I think that makes sense. I was curious, how much of that same feeling, right? Because a year just so I felt this. There's certainly been a lot of patches where sometimes I would just not log in until literally the weekend that we raided with our guild, right? I would be like, I'm not doing a single thing. I don't want to look at this game. I don't want to think about it. And one of the people in my key group, who's also on my team, is one of our reward sickos. He loves it. He has an endless amount of energy. Who's always like, why are we just not doing keys? And I'm like, are you not? What's wrong with you?
You just got it right.
What?
I'm with him on that.
Okay, but he's doing okay. No. Shout out.
Keys,
Every single person in my guild knows who I'm talking about. This person will do them on 12 characters. This person, we have not pushed past 13s on our like weekly keys because every single time he rolls up on a new undergeared healer.
Oh, dude, that's the worst.
That is Dranos.
No. But do you want to know the most fucked part? And Dranos, if you do this, I'm step on a Lego. Oh my god, I'm punching you into the ocean. He will show up on a Mistweaver that when I inspect him when he logs in, is in Brewmaster spec and has the myth pieces for tanking that he was getting from healing for us. It's such rat behavior that I respect it. And I love him so much for finding a new way. This is someone who duo bot one time we didn't have 2 tanks for an Immersion raid. He solo tanked the whole thing on 2 accounts. He just played 2 tanks at the same time. And I was like, yeah, you're a sicko. You're a freak. I can't believe you exist. So that guy's an anomaly, but I get what you're saying. Sorry, Dorko. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was we had to take a detour for everyone to know that the absurd machine that I play World of Warcraft with exists. Yeah.
But yeah, I think Max makes a really good point about like if you're starting late in the season, it really sucks. Because I have a lot of friends who are basically tourists. They play World of Warcraft on and off.
Yeah.
And anytime it's like mid-season, there's just no chance they're coming back to play the game. It's like, bro, like the fun of playing World of Warcraft is playing at the beginning of the season. You're playing with the boys, and it's just like, all the content is fresh. And when you're just coming in late, it just feels really bad.
Yeah, and it's just a feel bad thing. It's not actually that you're behind. Like something the game does really well now is that you can just you can fully catch up, right? You might be a myth track piece or 2 down because you've missed some vaults and stuff, but at least for me, I can just totally streamer benefit my way through that. So it's not even that. Mm-hmm. It's just the feeling of a lot of people play. It's why Blizzard probably pushes you to do raids and stuff. This game's a lot more fun with friends. And so when you want to play, you want to you want to play the game with your friends when it comes out. But all my friends just got done winning the race, so we're not trying to log in and set up new characters. They already have geared characters. I'm the only one without a geared character. Could I do it if I really? If WoW was my main passion and focus, would I still do it 100%? Right. And it still is for the race and stuff like that, but it's pretty specific to the race. I don't get out of bed too much for it outside of that.
I also imagine after years and years of playing, man, it probably loses a bit of its fun or even little scamp behavior to be all right, all my big world first raiders, carry my dog shit rogue through mythic. On the 8th time, you're maybe I would like to be pressing more meaningful buttons in this experience.
Yeah. I think it's just that it's been a long time. I still acknowledge that, I think WoW's gameplay, if you find a spec that you really identify with, you learn how to play it to mastery or close to where you still, feel like you're getting better. I just think that that's, the best gameplay in any game. I think that's still, to me, right now, that is true. It's more fun playing a WoW spec well than it is playing pretty much anything else. But I just can't. I don't know. It's just. I don't think I'm done forever. I think it could be the beginning of the expansion. I'll probably play a lot, right? It's just especially, I don't know, after you win, it's just pretty much my full focus just turns into streaming and just playing hockey and doing other stuff.
Yeah, you got to rest too, right? I think, every athlete needs to, right?
And nothing I can do will ever, no amount of content, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way. There's nothing I can possibly do in World of Warcraft that will challenge me and be as rewarding enough as how hard mythic raid bosses are in the first week and second week during the race to world first. That content does not exist in the game once I want to start playing it. Everything else will be a shade of that, right? I could maybe
there's something you need to do on stream though. You do need to do the challenge mode.
Yeah, he wants me to do the delve
question-
boss.
What is this?
Yeah, the question mark,
the
question
Kaiveza
mark,
thing?
Kaiveza.
Yeah.
Yeah, with minimum item level.
Dude, that was
and
so
ideally
good.
a boomkin.
Oh man, that was so sick.
I-
Start of the season.
I remember at the start, as a long time PoddyC listener, I remember at the start of this expansion when all three of you were like, I don't know if delves are good. And meanwhile, I'm over here like getting my 100 delves achievement, being like, this shit rules. I like it quite a lot.
So
and I especially
we
think
learned our lesson.
their solo bosses, I want to say, I want to give a special shout out. I think all of them, I think they've gotten progressively better. And I think it's a really fun way to get some of that little what is it called? That Brawlers Guild stank. Some of that little bit of like, let's give you like a fun one-off boss that you can
The Brawlers
tackle.
Guild owned, by the way. I don't know if like the version of the game or just what gaming is now, the community within the game is the same, but like that's a whole other tangent,
Yeah.
I guess. I just we were wrong about delves, and we've started a few podcasts with the, you know, like the old comedian bit of like, well, delves aren't good, huh? And then our chat, our comments, sorry, are just always like, you guys totally don't get it. Delves fucking rock. And I think
That's
after
my
the
favorite
last
bit.
episode, we're like, all right, fuck it, we get it, you know. So then we kind of focused in on, well, the delve part that was made for people like us, like the bosses, right, at the end, that just hasn't really hit yet. And then they came out with Nexus Princess Kaiveza, which is probably like the best version of that they could make. It shows a level of quality that you can look forward to every season, where you're like, holy shit, I might actually want to log in the first week just to try to do whatever they come up with next for that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
we've been moved off of our delves didn't hit stance.
No.
Although I did say when
hold
they
on.
came out, like most things, it might be good 2 years from now.
That's true, and it was also good then. So you kind of you're kind of playing both sides here. It was good then, and it'll be good 2 years from now. Cruel fate if somehow delves suck ass 2 years from now, but they were really good the whole time. No, I think I also want to say I really I was in favor of this, but I can't claim that I was like, no, absolutely I wasn't. But Kaiveza coming back as a delves boss is what I wanted, because the thing I was pretty loud about to anybody who would listen, which is like 3 people on the Encounters team who like me enough to talk to me, was I think this is going to be a bit of a yap, but I'm going to back up here. I think Zymox returning was really cool in Sepulchre, but is not, like, I don't think it was successful, right? I think it was cool to be like, oh, we had a novel side villain. He wasn't really built up as anything. He just had a unique mechanic, but I think people liked his vibe, right? And then it was like, oh, and then there's an opportunity to make him a raid boss later where he maybe feels like an upgraded or different version of that fight. And to me, the big issue was always like, well, one of them's just going to be the better fight, man. Like you're going to think of them forever as the good one and the bad one, right? Even if they were both, if people really like both of those fights, I think you're going to think of it that way. So I was like, Kaiveza was so good as a raid boss that it feels like having her back in Manaforge, which I think, I don't know that there were any official plans to have done so, but I have to imagine it was pitched when they thought they were going to go do ethereal stuff, right? But it's like, do you want to follow that up? Like, no, probably not. And I think players would be excited to be like, when are we going to see her again? But then, like, what if it isn't as good as the first one, right? You're probably pretty sad. So having her be the Delves nemesis and showing up and like ganking you, perfect way to keep the vibe of the character, and then springboarded them to make a challenge that feels as good or better for the individual because you change the context. So that to me is a lesson that I hope they take forever forward, right? Is like, if you have a really sick dungeon boss, you can make that a raid boss, or vice versa. Or you can do any of these things, right? I know there's sometimes you have like the Rashanan or you have the general call into those things. Those are not the best examples, but I also think, to me, the main issue is that they were being worked on simultaneously, right? If you think about like Shadowlands launch into Shadowlands raid, or War Within launch into War Within raid, right? I kind of think if the schedule would permit it, let like wait and see which dungeon fights do people really fucking love and did they really vibe with, right? And then do an Anubarak, right? Like maybe you got to fudge the little bit of like, ooh, we resurrected them with magic or something. But you could totally do that, right? You could see like, what was everybody's greatest hit? What was something they really loved? And then bring that back. So, sorry.
You know what they can do?
Yeah.
They can do Bubbles Jr. comes
Bubbles
back
Jr.
as a raid
Justice
boss.
for Bubbles! Just all of you
Bubbles
sickos
Jr.
killed Bubbles! Honestly,
is gonna go crazy. He's gonna go through the villain
it's
arc.
so cool, man. I love the. I was not a Bubbles hater to start, but that's because I'm a Death Knight. We're fucking unkillable. My poor Evoker dying like every other cast, had all his defenses up. It's not his damn fault. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here with an egg every 30 seconds like, what? What's the problem with this guy? He's fine. No, but I love things like that, man. Anytime like the story takes on its own kind of form, and now you have a Bubbles Jr. and people, a few years from now, there's going to be a Bubbles Jr. Delve boss or something, and people are going to point and be like, that's the guy, right? I love modern WoW myth making, like we don't have to keep pulling from stuff in the past. We have bits and jokes and stuff right now. Like, there's the end of the Delve track this time is a toy that turns you into Bran and does all the Bran stuff, right? And I'm like, to me, this is this expansion's, an illusion. What are you hiding? Like, lean into the stuff that people are already vibing with, right? So I love that shit, man. Absolutely. I think it's so fun.
Yeah, I think people can really tell as well when something organically became, bigger than it was originally intended, right? Like Bubbles became a bigger meme, a bigger
just ended everybody's runs,
cultural touchstone than initially expected. And haters will say it's because it was horrifically overtuned for
that's
for
true. Only haters will say that.
Haters
look within your heart before you leave a comment.
Yeah, but either way, like that, then having some fun with it, and when you bring back Floodgate, I think that sort of thing is really cool. I think it's much because you can tell when a game is kind of like trying to force it with like, we want you to think this is funny, or we want you to think this is cool, instead of like having either actually coming up with something funny or cool, or hearing from the player base, the community, what they like, and then giving them more of that. So that's one of those things. I think it's another thing that I'd be worried about being a casualty of a faster release cadence. But then, to their credit, we're citing multiple examples of them doing that just this expansion.
Yes,
so
I think
maybe it wouldn't be.
I think those are the elements of like when being scrappy goes right. And so maybe it's possible that me and all of these other things are just the growing pains of that. And I truly hope that that's the case. Like I don't want to be an old man on the other side being like, WoW has to slow down, right? Like maybe it needs to speed up, but just intelligently and in a way that this everybody's scope changes, and then everybody finds out how to be creative within that scope, right? I think my longing comes from things like, and I know divisive endlessly, but stuff like corruption, right? Which is something that brought me back. I was not playing WoW at the time, and I came back for N'Zoth. I came back for corruption, right? It's hard for me when you look at stuff like the phase diving in Cloak, and you look at corruption, to envision a world where we get corruption again, because I think if you are, and I don't want to kick dirt on the current patch stuff too much. Suffice to say, it's not my thing, and I don't have a particularly high opinion of it. But it's more so that rather than say like, oh, this individual didn't dream big enough, right? Like that's never the issue, right? It's what can the game support being made right now, right? And so to me, that is the fear. Or another one, I was having this thought. I was thinking about like, what kind of stuff am I going to talk about on the podcast? Max, very famously, you were one of Halandris's biggest critics when you tested that boss, right? You remember the version of Halandris that got tested, and then it went dark. Yeah,
with the Odin runes and the completely different encounter.
Completely different thing, dude, right?
The best part was there were the 3 different runes, and it was light brown, yellow, and dark brown were the 3 different colors of the effect.
In the sand, yeah. Right. And you look at that fight, and then went dark for a few weeks. Raid comes out, one of the greatest fights of all time, right? Like in the Hall of Fame for WoW raid fights, right? And to me, I'm like, how many Halandrises are we not getting? Right, as a result of this cadence. And that's not knowable, but to me, as somebody who's been on the ground and talks to people, right, this is also, I'm going to keep prefacing this because I feel like so many of my coworkers are going to watch this and be like, he said mean things about us. I'm like, no, I love you all, and I care so much. But I think about one fight that I kind of can't hide my disappointment for this tier was Fractalus. And I will say, nothing but deep respect for the person who worked on Fractalus. I think one of the smarter encounter designers ever. And obviously, sometimes things just whiff, right? But when I think of that Hallanders thing, I'm always like, what if everything had a little more time? And I know you can endlessly apply that stuff, right? But to me, it feels like some of these things come out and look so promising, and then it's like one little thing it got solved in one way too quickly, or even if there isn't a cheese or a weakor necessarily that fully solves it, right? There's often it's like kind of a dare I call it an oversight that it's like, oh, just the way that people will class stack or the way that people will play or the way that people would hold damage, right, will just change the texture of the fight entirely. And that's the kind of thing that a few more weeks in an earlier stage of development fixes, right? Because I think having time later is, I don't want to say it's useless, but it's pretty tough to make use of the time later in the cycle, right? Because art's already made, things are already recorded, you don't want to throw a bunch of stuff away. It's very, very hard to make changes later in that cycle, right? And so I think that's my, I'll step off this particular soapbox, but I think that's my fear, is that you get people saying, well, I don't even want to get close to something that might run out of time, right? So let me go with the safest option, or let me go with the medium option instead of the big option, right? And you get less swing. So I think Kaiveza and Bubbles Jr. these are the winners of something like this, right? And then I'm going to say stuff like Fractalus and the Cloak and things like that. To me, feel like the losers of this, right? Possibly.
When I went to Blizzard, I saw something pretty cool. I got to see, I forget his name, but he sat in the corner in that same rewards room you're in.
Jeff Groh, my goat.
Yeah, the guy who does secrets, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is professions, but yes, he also makes secrets.
Yeah, well, when I worked there, one thing that people said that they did is that some of their job is given to them. Like, do this thing. This is something that needs to be done in the game. And then a decent amount of things are, what do you find really cool? Like, you have a lot of, if you find this really interesting, you can make this thing. When I saw some of the stuff he was working on, I could tell that if he was not working at Blizzard, he would just be one of those people in the secret finding Discord figuring out secrets.
Yeah.
He just seemed to really, really enjoy that level of it. So he was able to put something that he personally loved. I'm not sure if he was assigned to do that or not, but he was just putting them in the game because he thought.
I don't believe he was. I mean, he was, and also specifically, I believe what you were referencing was he was assigned to and was working on the customizations for druids in the Immersion patch. And then he decided to say, well, let me have my unlock condition for this, not just throw it on a renown. Like let's come up with a fun, unique way. And so you had to go travel around the different moonwells that exist in the base game. And that stuff was really cool. Yeah. I love Jeff Groh. He's actually my neighbor. He's somewhere over there. So shout out to Jeff. I will also say, used to be an escape room designer. So another fun thing.
Awesome.
That's something that I want to learn that skill from him. And he's offered to talk with me more about it.
I bet he's great at puzzles.
Yeah, not at all surprising to hear that guy is making, or I think he was also involved with the Warlock pet customization, where there's a book you have to take to a port. Spoilers. What the fuck was that? Spoilers for something that's 2 or 3 years old now, right? You had to take a book to one of the portals in the last Raid of Legion. In that portal fight, you had to take a portal and then put the book through, and then a demon came out. I'm like, that shit rules, man. That's awesome. Yes. I heard that he is going to be working on some more raid stuff for the future, which has me very excited. Because forever and forever, I've been thinking I think he's would be very, very good at it.
Yeah, I the reason I brought that up is I just found it cool that you guys can do stuff in your job and put stuff into this game that we all love, and it's basically because you find something really cool. So I wanted to ask you, what are some things that you've done at Blizzard or Riot, maybe as a deep cut old thing, I guess, where you're just this was something that I just thought was really cool and put into the game. This wasn't necessarily my job. It could be overall broad scope, rewards could be your job, but I specifically thought this was really cool.
Riot. I now that you bring it up, I am going to say one for Riot. This was on the very first character I worked on the very first patch, which I don't even really think we called them patches necessarily. I mean, we did, but it was every 2 weeks instead of every 6 months, right? Kha'Zix is an assassin, is the first character that I got to work on. I was the live balance sign-off. The names, our titles sucked, and they changed nonstop. But all that meant was that from the balancing team, for lack of a better term, and I think that team went through like 8 different names, I was assigned to a guy named David Abacassis, who was the champion designer for Kha'Zix. And so I was, for lack of a better term, meant to be good enough at the game to talk him out of ideas that would ruin the game, right? Which was a fun and, at the time, volatile pairing, because I, unlike how I am now, wanted the game to stay orderly, and this guy is insane. And I love him. He's very, very good for that. But the idea of, for those of you who don't know, and I know you're like, League of Legends, it's like, yeah, sorry, the other game 30-year-olds play. Don't lob tomatoes, you know. Old. Yeah. No, it is.
No, harsh but fair.
Yeah, harsh but fair. Brother, if I worked on that game 10 years ago, it means that people in their 30s are playing it. So Kha'Zix is a character who evolves over the course of the game, but he evolves every time he ranks in his ultimate. You only get 3 ranks for your ultimate. So there was supposed to be a choice baked into, well, which of your abilities do you not evolve? And we had the idea of, wouldn't it be cool if there was some secret condition upon which he could get his 4th evolution? And to me, the balance reason why I pushed for this so hard was that inherently it's not even that strong, right? Because you would choose the strongest thing first for you, and then the second strongest thing, and then the third strongest thing. So you're getting barely an upgrade, right? But it feels awesome because the whole point of the character is to be the ultimate evolution. He eats things and he grows stronger, right? And before him came out the Predator character, this big lion named Rengar, and he had a unique item that when you killed characters would like stack it because he's like a headhunter, right? And they were supposed to be the Alien versus Predator, legally distinct, do not at me, Alien versus Predator, right? That was their whole bit. And so I really pushed for and fought for adding a quest, the first of its kind quest in the game, where if you had a Rengar and if you had a Kha'Zix on opposite teams, and they were both level 16, so Kha'Zix has his 3 evolutions, and Rengar has his maximum stacked necklace, a quest would appear. And quests existed in the game in the tutorial that by this time was defunct. So many people had never fucking seen this UI in their life when it appeared. They were like, what do you mean there's a quest? Right? Like, WoW has quests all the time. What is this? And it was the first one of them to assist or kill eventually take down the other would get their benefit permanently. Right? And so everyone in your team is like, you got to help your feeding ass Kha'Zix kill that Rengar, or you have to protect him, or you have to do whatever, right? And it was really fun. And every one of the older designers at that company, like, almost made me cry over it. They thought it was such a bad idea. They were like, you can't do this. Our game is important. It is esports. Like, you can't ever do this. And then it went out and it was fucking fine. And it was fine and people liked it. And they have since done quests later, and then I think people criticized them because they didn't have any power stakes to them. And I think finally they've ripped that Band-Aid off and they've said, fuck it, we have some quests. Like, I think there's a Nasus and Renekton thing where they'll fight each other. Sorry, everybody can unplug your ears. I'm done talking about League of Legends for now. But that's like the first thing that I was like, we should do quests. We should do this quest. And everyone was like, okay, so you want to die. And if this doesn't go well, we're going to fire you. And even if it does go well, you should never do a good idea. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm fucking like 20 or something. I'm like, oh, please don't beat me up. No, my greatest passion, we've talked about this, I think some of us off camera before.
Yeah.
For this is naming things, naming the tier sets, doing flavor text. It's something that I really care about. It's something I really care about getting right. And, it's funny and interesting. I don't want to sound too self-important. I'm on a fucking podcast. Everyone's listening to me talk about it, right? I know this some maybe a little silly, but it's like, think of Frostborn or like the Blades of Azeroth, right? These are Excalibur. Who the fuck in life, somebody thousands and thousands of years ago came up with the word Excalibur, and everyone was like, damn, that's a heater, right? Like,
yeah.
like there's something so cool to me that I discovered about myself on this job, because I love doing bits. I love doing jokes. When I wrote the patch notes, I would take a lot of pride in finding a way to do a joke and teach you something, right? It's not enough to just do a stupid bit because everybody can do a pun, right? But it's like when you hit somebody when they least expected it, you've got me in learning mode and then you made me laugh, or reverse, right? I think that's the stuff when it makes the most sense. So I learned about myself on this job. I was like, I really, really care about, and again, no shade to the Blizzard people of old. If you go look at I think there's like a generational, like 9-year run of every hunter tier being called X-Stalker's Battle Gear, right? And it's like, look, man, everybody's got deadlines. I fucking feel you. But let's imagine something a little more. And so I pushed really hard when we all brought tier sets back in Sepulcher, and I only had to do a few of those. But I was like, I want to imagine, and nobody paid me to do this or asked me to do this, technically, but it was like, I want to imagine, what is Zereth Mortis? Zereth Mortis is the blueprint. It is like how life is created in a way, right? It's this peek behind the veil of like the makers of the universe or whatever, right? Some shit like that. I know it's all very up in the air. So to me, the names should evoke this, or they should feel, at least the ones that I felt are done particularly well, like they're almost like archetypal. Like it's like you're looking at, like this is what the first ever Death Knight would have worn. Right? Like when some untold alien god made a blueprint for a Death Knight, that's what it looked like, right? And so every single one since then, I tried to think like, what is a theme very broadly that we can apply to a patch and then drill it down? So things like Dragonflight, right? It's like coming kind of to a new world. It's like the first, do I remember what it was? Sorry, you really got me on this shit, and I like it a lot and I care so much, so I'm so sorry. The Demon Hunter set in Dragonflight Season 1, they've got like wings on them, but they're more like bird wings, right? And I forget the name exactly, but it was something, the whole concept was Demon Hunters just found out dragons exist and they love them. It's that Rosa meme from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's the like, I've had this dragon for one day, and if anything happened to it, I would kill everyone here and then myself. Like, that's the whole set, is them being like, I have a flight suit now because I don't have to be pissed maybe for one patch. I want to do this. Or in War Within, the Demon Hunters are like little fucked up goblin demons from underground or whatever, right? Like, to me, it's fun to imagine those things. And you don't always get there with all of them because there's 13 classes and there's a lot of words. But even like Undermine, thinking about like that Warlock set as being like, these people are selling contraband, like fell parts. No, I think that was the Demon Hunter. I think Warlock is the spliced fiend trader, right? Because they're like half demon in their skin. What if you met a guy in the alley of Undermine who's like, hey, I could do that. Give me fucking gold cap. I'll turn you into half demon. People would do it, right? So, sorry, I'll stop on this part, but it mattered a lot to me to do it for 2 whole expansions. Like, nobody fought me for it, and I think people thought I did a good job, so I'm happy about it. But I loved the idea of like, I wanted them to feel like a set, right? That when you looked at each of them in your little character pane, that you're like, each time, even if the theme isn't for me, if the art isn't for me, I get what they were going for, right? Or I feel like I was part of a kind of an ensemble, so to speak. And then flavor text. I think I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, as people can see in my apartment. I'm trying to get rid of my cards, my excess chaff collection. I've been like shuffling a deck of cards while you're here because it's very easy. Flavor text, I think when you do it right, is some of the most poignant and like fun writing that people can do, right? Like Dratnos, I know I'm going, whoa! Dratnos, I know I'm going off. Dratnos, what is your favorite Magic card or Magic flavor text? Because you probably have one.
Yeah, I have. Let's see. I think the thing that jumps to mind isn't actually flavor text; it's rules text that doesn't.
Oh,
it's cowards can't block warriors.
Yeah.
That's functional rules text.
Cowards can't block warriors, right? Yes, absolutely.
That one goes crazy.
Well, yeah, which is flavorful in a way, but yeah, every Magic player cares about that stuff, right? Even if they don't get into the game to care about it, they end up caring about it, right?
Yeah.
And so it was always a big point of pride for me. Max, I don't think you were ever like this. Dorky, I can't see your face, so I'm so sorry. The amount of times you've maybe ever wanted to speak, and I'm like, fuck you, man, I'm going to speak. No, but it was a big point of pride for me, because I don't think y'all are like this. But when you have players who are like, I don't care about the lore. All I care about is the competitive side of World of Warcraft. And I am doing that silly voice because it's insane. You're playing a fantasy game about dragons, and you're like, I don't ever read the lore. But then if you have an item that you think is cool, you're like, except this one. I think this is cool, right? Or like, I will get a Frostmourne tattoo, right? It's like, if something resonates with people, it will break through those barriers. Like all of the frat bros who loved Halo and tried to pretend they didn't care about what was happening in the campaign, but now they have deep feelings about the Flood and Master Chief. Like, if you do it right, it will pierce people's like armor in a way that I don't think they always notice. And so I'm not saying I think I've ever done stuff that was particularly of that caliber, but it was something that motivated me. And so I was really excited to do it. And it was really important to me. Sorry, this was all because I was even going to bring this up earlier. I will finally fucking stop talking. Dorky was talking about, okay, well, it's on them. They know. What is it? Dorky, you were talking about, you were agreeing with me about how people don't recognize when the game is designed, right? Because everybody, like when you all go into the world and you loot gray, nobody thinks about like, there's a human maybe named Phil who put that gray there, right? You're like, no, that's just on the animal corpse because I killed it in the video game, right? The craziest version of this is the axe on Salhadar dropped, which is, I'm sad that like one-handers aren't good for Frost for a number of reasons, because to me, that is one of the coldest fucking like name flavor text combos that I've ever made. I'm really proud of it. It dropped. People in my raid who know me, my family and friends, saw it and are like, holy shit, this rules. I wonder who did that. And I'm like, it's me. You've known for years it was me. What do you mean? But they're just like, in their minds, the immersion of WoW is so deep, right? That they're just like, you see a thing and you're like, oh, that's sick, right? Like this Salhadar had it on his body, right? And I think that artifice, that level of like, that like veneer of fantasy is so meaningful. So when you can impact it in a way that is really important, I think it's magic. I think it's crazy. So I feel like I got really good at that in these last 5 years. I don't think before I would have said I was a particularly good writer, and now I feel very, very good about it. So yeah. Sorry, that was like 15 minutes on it, but you fucking asked, man. So at your own peril.
Yeah. I know what I did. Dradnos and I have known for a long time that you reached levels of yap that and Dradnos and I are both huge yappers, but we would never go toe to toe.
Dude, we had a 30-minute. We got the interview with you, right? That we did back when you actually were working at Blizzard, right? And it's like 30 minutes, and Max was like so stressed for prepping for this thing.
Oh, dude, no,
dude. He was like, oh man, and I was like, he was like, is 5 questions prepped enough? And I was like, dude, 3 questions. is an optimistic amount of questions for us to get to ask here.
No, it's so funny. Also, I think I think that's adorable. Literally, I don't know that I maybe would have told this to you, Max, but I think this is really funny. We had never met and never spoken to each other once ever in my life up to this point. But for some reason, based on some stream you had done or something, I was like, maybe I should reach out to that guy and see if he would want to hang out, because I think we would be friends. I think I would enjoy his company. And that night, he DM'd me on Discord, and he was like, do you want to come get dinner? And I was like, did I imagine this? I was like, did I send you a message that you're responding to? Then we had a great time. I think it was a very fun conversation. And importantly, Max might remember this, within the first 30 minutes of that car ride, I told him, if Dratnos sucks in person, don't tell me. I was like, let me live in ignorance. Which I'm happy to report to all of you, he does suck. He's a total monster off camera. I'm being held here against my will.
I've heard about this. I've heard how
that's true. He's a tyrant. He's crazy.
Yeah,
dude, my guild will tell you the same thing, man. They're always like, no, he's not that nice. He's awful.
Yeah,
he's evil.
No, I just think you have what we in my community call scamp energy, right? It's just like the little grinning satyr playing his little lute, always profiting off of other people's bits, And I think that's a jolly way to live. So I think it's totally fine. I do want to ask. I also don't know how much time we have. I do want to ask y'all stuff because I want to stop talking for a bit. I want to ask, what are people's vibes about Midnight? What are the streets saying? How are y'all feeling about heading into this? I mean, I know Alpha hasn't come out yet. I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna know a lot more tomorrow, right?
But in terms of, God, is it even tomorrow? Jesus, yeah.
Well, by the time everybody's watching this, it's old.
Yeah,
news.
So we all know. We've all read them, right? We all know.
We've all known for ages.
No, but I'm curious about like what y'all's level of energy, hesitations, excitement, anticipation, like how are y'all feeling about it at around this point?
I think it's weird because like the parts of the game that I like specialize in, it's the least like new stuff
Yeah.
in that space. But I say that with keeping in mind that like housing, I think, is going to be generationally big for the game.
Yeah.
And I kind of expect that I'll probably expand somewhat into like I don't know. I mean, I don't think I'll be a big housing creator or anything like that. I think that space is
Sure.
very clearly going to get ceded to a lot of the casual players that their two games are already WoW and The Sims, right?
I think
and, like,
they're going to be new creators, actually.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be people that are just absolutely bonkers at houses that there's a space for that. Yeah.
Whoever is the
like,
first person that makes like an HGTV like YouTube show of like redesigning or flipping fucking WoW houses that's gonna go crazy. That's for free. Someone out there, find your calling. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But so like, even though I don't think it's going to be like, I don't know. I don't know how much of my content is going to be housing related. It'll probably just be to the extent that like, oh, here's the patch, like here's the new furniture coming in the new patch. You know, let's take a look at all that, right? Like that, those kind of things, right? Like that sort of will probably be the end of how much it impacts my content side of things. But like as a WoW player, I am excited about that as well.
Yeah.
But Apex talents, I think, are a smaller thing than hero talents were, or than the Dragonflight talent tree was before them, right? Or covenants and all that stuff were before that. So it's kind of more chill, right? Like it's going to be a WoW expansion.
I'm cautiously, I don't even know if I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm cautious about Apex talents. I don't really get them. I don't really understand the vibe, but I'm the person who, my whole thing is, right, is like, take a big swing or don't swing at all. And for me, I think hero talents, I think they played out a little safe, and maybe throughout this expansion's life cycle, I don't know if enough people got to play with enough of them, or enough of them have a draw. But I think, like, to me, if the game always had hero talents, I would not think it was a negative to the game, right? And I think there's only opportunities for more in the future, right? You could imagine in 10 years, right? I don't think they're going to be like, and everybody gets a third. Fuck it, maybe they will. But like, you could imagine, so many people when this came out were like, why doesn't Warrior get Blade Master or something, right? I don't think that, and they had reasons. I don't want to, open the can of worms, but you could totally imagine, a universe where a really cool new character appears in Midnight, and then maybe by the end of the expansion, like they did with Devoured, it's like, and that is a hero talent now, right? Like every combat designer just like winced and got an ulcer when I said that. But just like, that's the kind of thing you could imagine. To me, the possibility space of hero talents and what it does for the game is good, right? And I think that's fine. Apex talents to me is just like, it feels like the least of all worlds. It feels like how I felt when Azerite armor was a thing. And this is funny. I was telling some of my, I met up with some coworkers a few weeks ago. It was very funny because one of the people, right after I left Riot, one of the people who works here now still, but worked on Azerite armor then, gave me like a tour of Blizzard. He was like, hey, do you want to come hang out? I was like, yeah, I would love to. And then we got in the cafeteria and he was telling me about Azerite armor. And I felt so bad because in my head as a player, I was like, yes, the Legion artifact stuff feels like it solves a problem. It adds cool narrative. Like, it's all the stuff that you would want. It's a slot you care about. It's giving you cool story. It's giving you cool visuals. And he was like, yeah, we're actually keeping that system. And I was like, oh, sick. Tell me about it. And he was like, yeah, so it's going to be your like head, shoulder, and chest. And I was like, oh, is it like class specific armor? And he was like, no, it's not. He was like, but it has powers. I was like, cool. And are those class specific? He was like, no, they're not at all. And it was like, neat. And what is like the lore reason for powering? It's like a necklace we're introducing in this expansion. It was like, cool. So it's like Legion, but without all the stuff that made it interesting. So to me, a little bit of that is how I feel about Apex talents. Is I'm like, but we're not, like, where's the sauce, right? And gameplay-wise, it might be fine, and maybe it's just because they feel that they need to do it. But I'm skeptical of the sauce that they may possess, certainly.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I don't want to be too hard on Apex talents without having played them, because
absolutely,
at the end of the day,
I feel like I'm coming off as such a big hater.
I do agree, though. I feel like there are some systems where you see them and you immediately know that, like, the idea came first, and then figuring out sort of like slotting it into the expansion and figuring out how it fit into the ecosystem came second.
Yeah.
And then there are some where afterwards, or maybe even initially, you can be like, okay, they needed something in the space of what are we doing with talents this expansion, and this is what they eventually designed for that, right?
Yeah.
And like it's a little, it's a little bit, it's not like inspiration first, it's like, okay, we've got a problem we need to solve. And I think that you can't expect to always have the former,
absolutely,
but it's reasonable for players to be less excited about than, okay, we're getting the Ashbringer, right? Or like any of those kind of things.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to everyone for how much. I hope I don't sound too much like a Redditor as I say these things. Because you're like, Patrick, they can't all be winners, and I'm like, but what if they were? And I know that's insane. That's an insane way to live. I think you brought up something about housing that I wanted to think about too. Just continuing in this vein, I'm with you in that, like, yeah, I think housing is going to be a pretty huge people have been yelling about it forever. I have a little fear, and I want to give voice to that fear, and I want to be wrong, right? I want to be so clear. On League of Legends, if you rewound to when I started working there in 2012, which, Jesus Christ, saying that turns me to dust, maybe the loudest thing that people were upset about not having for years. And I mean, like, we had data that showed that everyone was still mad about this. They were talking about it all the time. It was replays. How many people do you know use League of Legends replays ever? Or voice chat, for that matter, right?
Wait, I use replay.
Like, cool. I guess I'm saying is, like, to me, they are not or were not like wild features.
I see what you're saying.
Like maybe, like, it's probably true that maybe in a perfect world they would have always been there, right? Because other games not built on big rigs or whatever it is that, like, League of Legends engine is, like, running on in the core of its heart, something insane, like shooters or whatever will be like, yeah, watch your replay back, right? Overwatch is like a crazy replay system. Right, there are many, many games that people more sophisticated than me could point out. But I think League replay has certainly made some people's lives easier, but it was not as meaningful as I think relative to the noise that was made about it, right? And I think voice chat was another one that, like, and maybe that's just time, right? Is by the time Riot got around to making voice chat, Discord existed, right? And it was like, well, we solved it for everyone now. Nobody wants to use the in-game version of this, right? Things like that. So there's a little fear that I have that it won't be as big as they are hoping and perhaps needing it to be. And my thing is, I think it will bring a lot of new people to the game, certainly. And I think there is a Venn diagram. Shout outs to a friend of the podcast, Miss Marvel, Feral Legend, who messaged me last night saying she is, like, jittering thinking about playing the alpha and, like, playing with housing because she's wanted this forever. She's a real Minecraft OG. Shit like that, right? So there's certainly a Venn diagram of current WoW players who really love it. But I think there are, I think in people's heads right now, there are people that will bring in current players that will like it, and then like competitive players that won't like it. I think there's a solid mass of people who just won't think about it, for whom there is not something else. And when I compare this to Delves, which again, it's a gameplay thing, it's apples to oranges in some respect, Delves to me is a thing that so clearly felt like it should have always been in the game and really spoke, I think, to that mass of people that were like, I just want more stuff to do with people, with my one friend, by myself, in a way that lets me experience the world with my guy, right? With my character and with my little stories on what little time I have. And so that is my, if I had to levy one fear across the bow of what I think is otherwise going to be a massive, incredible upgrade to the game, I think it's that. I think I've heard a lot of people liken this to transmog, and I would say, to me, transmog is, I mean, it's kind of incomparable because it is so rooted in the actual game, right? I raid to get transmog. I do dungeons to get transmog. I make purchases and I do reputation grinding to get transmog, right? And some of that will have its hooks in, like, yeah, if you go do an old achievement or old dungeon, you'll get like a housing stick or a portrait or something, maybe, like you'll get some of those things, but I don't think it has the same one-to-one, like, lizard brain connection of, like, wow, I did a 20 hours of raiding this week with the gang and I came out looking awesome, right? I don't know that that's going to happen necessarily for some people. And so that's my fear. It's my long-winded fear.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I do think that there is a history of features that a lot of people talk about, and then a bunch of them don't actually care about when they get added to the game after so many years. So I do think there's definitely it's a valid worry of that as well for housing.
And also, my PS on this is, before people or as people are writing comments about this, I mean, people who like housing, like Animal Crossing likers, are often on the receiving end of this. They are often the people who are like the ones who are told your desire isn't enough for people to care about. So if you are someone for who this is, I legitimately could not be happier for you that the company has been motivating for years and years and years. And again, everyone I know has been working on it for so long, and they have made like the best version of a housing editor ever. Like, it is going to be best in class, right? I just, the same way that I think Devour is sick, right? But so many people after the announcements were kind of left holding the bag of like, neat, but what if I'm not a Demon Hunter player? And it's like, well, house. And that's, you get what I'm saying, right? Is that there's some people who are going to kind of be left being like, hey, is my disinterest paying for their joy, right? Yeah, that's the thing.
That is an interesting thing about how last expansion or Dragonflight, we got Evoker, right? We got an entire class. Everyone's going to make an Evoker, but like and we've done the introducing the single spec thing, right, with AUG. But like having a single spec be an expansion feature is an interesting thing where it is going to hit some people like, well, I don't already play that, so that doesn't apply to me, right? That isn't something I'm going to log in for, where an entirely new spec would do that. I haven't thought about that. I'm like so excited for that, actually.
I think it's so cool. Sick. It's so clear. The moment you see it just move, you're like, yeah, oh my God, right? And it makes sense. And I'm glad it took them this long to think of it. I'm sad. I don't think I won the war on this one. I really wanted to put an intellect, because I actually don't know what weapons they use. Maybe they use glaives still. I heard at one point they were going to use scythes, and like maybe that was going to be like pole arms or something.
Yeah, it's intellect, but like, what kind of intellect weapon is it going to be?
Yeah, there's definitely intellect on warglaives now.
Okay, so they did that, which is always weird because the weapon DPS on int weapons is lower, but I guess that's just not true for warglaives, so fuck it, maybe not. Whatever. But I wanted so badly to put an intellect warglaive on the Demon Hunter fight that nobody could loot, but that you could only see in the dungeon journal. That, to me, that's one thing. That's a minor request. I think they need to play with the dungeon journal more as a means of doing story. Because I think that's one of those you would see it and you'd be like, what do you mean? What is that? We did a bit of that intentionally with AUG. We actually knew AUG was coming enough that there were, I don't think anybody could have known how AUG was going to play out, but there were a number of trinkets. I remember one in Onarin Plains dungeon. Why can't I think of the name? The Centaur one, you all know it.
No-Kud
Offensive. Yes, the No-Kud Offensive. Yeah. There was an int trinket that gave shields to your whole team.
I remember that.
And we put it there because I didn't put it there. Sorry, shout out to my boy Evan. He put it there because it was like, well, if AUG is going to exist, we should maybe have a few of these non-damaging but non-healer specific int trinkets, right? Because then once they exist, maybe they'll be like, oh, it's neat that is there for me, right? And sometimes you can precede it that way. But yes. Anyways, that's a dumb little fun. I have like 8 million stories of fun, tiny things that either didn't shake out or didn't quite work out the way we wanted.
Dude, I actually have some questions about trinkets. Talking of trinkets. Why do some trinkets exist as complete trash? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, the Midas Golden Touch from Atal Dazar would be like the prime example of one, right? Like the one that just like increases your auto attack damage. Or this season would be the first technique trinket, the tank trinket from Streets.
Insane way of asking this trinket question.
Is anyone ever going to use this? Because like, you're not going to ever use it even if it's like max item level myth track. So
hold on. Let me take a drink. This is a big one.
Okay, here we go.
No. Yeah, I'm fucking ulting. No. I'm probably not going to. But I'm curious. And again, Dorky, please. I swear, I gotta put like a little cat on your screen for me. Other people don't see this. He's just a void. Yeah. He's gonna have something really cute and fun on the episode.
It's gonna be the merch for sure.
Everyone's gonna be like, why didn't Patrick fucking let Dorky speak ever? And I hope, in fact, Frank, run with that. I hope that's a bit.
Have him just like raising his hand, like wanting to talk.
Okay, that has to be what it is. Oh my god. All right, I'm sorry. No, trinkets. So I would say on one hand, level 1 is that some people will use every trinket, right? And this is because the amount of people who play this game and the ways that they play them are so huge and so different, right? And so in a sense, and this is something that I think we didn't get the tuning right when Delves first launched, but some of you remember that there's so many trinkets in season 1 of Delves. There were so many of them, right? Too many. And I think they reduced down properly in future seasons, but it was mostly just if somebody logs in and they are a purely Delves player, purely outdoor player, or dungeons, or raid, or whatever, think about them in those silos. But then think about them slice up even further, right? Think about, let's say I am someone that plays in Delves or dungeons, but only some of the time, which means I don't even care to see all 8 dungeons in a rotation, right? Necessarily. Now, granted, we haven't gone like Legion did, which was like every piece of armor drops from every single dungeon, right? And everything has it. But you want to essentially spread things out in a way that guarantees everybody can get something everywhere, right? So in essence, this means that trinkets, which have the potential to be very, very powerful, very flavorful, very impactful items, are spread out consistently in a way that you kind of can't help but walk into one, right? And as you become a higher information player and you become aware of things like sims, or you become aware of this particular tank is the meta, or these classes are the meta, and I am rolling these classes, therefore I want my cooldowns to function in a certain way, or I want to pull dungeons in a certain way, right? You gravitate towards other effects, right? Not everybody plays those ways. So that's my level 1 as to why a lot of these things exist. My level 2, I guess, is, well, some of them are just older, right? Like Secret Technique was good in ages past, right? Yeah. Like it was good when it came out. But we also had item levels. We didn't have the upgrade system, right? So Tazavesh gear was actually a little better than what you could get anywhere else. So it was one of those where, same way as like raids always had like a little bit of a bump, right? Because it was like, well, these are harder to obtain. So it makes sense for them to be a little more powerful so that if things were 1-to-1, your raid trinket might win out some amount more. Right. And Tazavesh being the mega dungeon or needing to do hard mode or whatever, that was kind of how it was meant to be. Right. Is you've got like 5 or 6 trinkets in there and they were also meant to be a little more powerful. Right. So that's layer 2 is that it's like, I think the older you go, they just make sense in different contexts and different times. Right. But for now, I think tuning them is very difficult. And you will notice that this expansion and a little bit last expansion, we've done more tuning on trinkets than ever, right? Like the team, shout out to Evan and Tyler for all their work poring over data to like make sure that those things are tuned, right? It's more like you kind of can't know what classes and what situations are going to pop off, right? It's just not for us to know. So instead, you just have to try and make sure that you've covered for everything. And on y'all's end, weeks later, it's going to look like there's only 3 trinkets that are good, right? But if we didn't, I'll cast our minds back to Dragonflight Season 1, which had other interesting things going on. But one major hole we missed was that Wizards did not have an on-use gain stats button. They didn't have one. They didn't have an on-use like synergize with my cooldowns thing. Every other class did, right? And it like for a while dunked them a tier in the like M+ pecking order, and it dunked them a tier in the highest performers of raid, because the better you are, the more you can optimize, you can press your potions, your everything at the same time. But also when you're at like Maxis level, right? Like where you lust, when people are sending their cooldowns, right? Is different than your standard player or even your standard high level player, right? Like things get really, really specific. So your needs are different. So we just ended up in a situation where one wasn't there, and so Wizards as a class were just bad. They were bad until we ended up sending some buffs to some other stuff so that you could make kind of a later surge of like some, I think Destro Warlock was being a thing. I think like one of the mage specs, because they're always kicking around, right? Like things like that picked up. So this is maybe not the most satisfying answer, but mostly it's just to say, like, you want to try and cover for all scenarios so that when the situations arise, the tools are there. And it sucks to look backwards on the amount of time and effort or creativity spent on a tool that wasn't used, either because it didn't come up, right? But I mean, much has been said, even on this podcast, Max talking about like I think you were talking about a lot in Undermine, where y'all class stacked a lot on one boss, and then the next boss, it would be very different, right? You would be like, and now we need a bunch of people in this thing, right? When those niches are active, you know, there's a world out there where it's like, well, these 5 boomkins want this one trinket, and these 5 Death Knights want this one trinket, and they are different from one another, but it's not ever going to be, or rarely going to be, this one character wants 5 trinkets to pick from, right? And I think that is kind of a cognitive break for some folks, in that it's like, we would like you to have options. You know, sometimes you wear the second best. I'm wearing a Priory Signet on my DK, which feels awful because they made everything 45 seconds and like 90 seconds on that class. But I'm like, better than nothing. It is both a hit in my vault, technically, and keeps me playing so that there's more stuff to obtain, right? I don't feel god-awful looting it. So, I don't know. Sorry, I put a lot of stuff in the soup there. Hopefully that gives you some insight on why it's there. We're never, like, stocking shit into you know, coal or whatever, and they're being like, haha, we're going to put the bad one in this season or something, right? And, of course, you know, sometimes tuning makes a thing that was good, bad, or vice versa, right? It's just kind of random in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do know a lot of games do this where, like, sometimes they will just have the bad loot so that it kind of amplifies the effect of getting good loot. However, I will say, with regards to trinkets, like, personally, I'm not a huge fan of trinkets, especially because they're a lot more stat sticky nowadays than before. And stat sticks, in my opinion, are just, like, boring. But, like, some of my favorite trinkets were, like, the ones in the past.
Exist. Yeah.
Yeah, like Legion trinkets were really fun, especially the tank ones. Oh man, I really enjoyed stuff like Dima's trinket, the one that like would just do like a 70% slow on targets around you. Like that was awesome to have. And then you would also have like the glaive trinket that would just like drop down a glaive that would just do a ton of damage. There was also like the portal trinket, the one from Portal Keeper that would.
I do have to stop you and say I used one and it did a lot of damage. We have had a lot of those, Storky. You've got to give me that. Yeah. You've had a lot of I press button and thing happen that's fun.
Although as a tank now we do 33% less than everybody else when we press those.
Okay, okay, back to your tank prison, Dratnos. Don't speak to me. No.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have like looked into Fellowship a whole lot. They actually have like some pretty interesting trinkets. Like trinkets are.
I was watching it that it played, but I wasn't up to date on their systems. Tell me, speak to that.
So it's essentially trinkets you could equip different effects like polymorphing. So one of them was actually really, really interesting. It's you can turn a mob into a chicken and that mob becomes useless for the rest of the dungeon, but you don't get count from it. So I found that to be really interesting. So it's like if you just want to
banish it forever.
Right, exactly. You can just remove any. If you decide like, oh, you know, maybe this pack has too many bolters, you can just decide to remove one of them and combine that pull together, and that makes it like kind of a nice pull. But that aside, there's also just a bunch of other utility trinkets like health potion is actually one of them. You could have like Warlock Gateway as one of them. Like all sorts of different effects rather than some power trinket. Yeah,
so part of the difficulty there, right, and just the difference. I mean, I dig that. Like, I think that makes sense. But those are also, this is all reductive. We could go down this line of thinking. But they're also almost like talents, right, or perks, or relics, or name whatever it is for whatever game you're playing, right? Part of this that is really difficult and challenging for WoW is the acquisition model, right? Like, you have to get random drops from the game, right? Some people hate that. There's also the way it's been for 20 years, and it just kind of is what it is, right? It's like everybody shows up, and they all put in the effort to do the dungeon or to do the thing, and sometimes it drops, and sometimes you win it, right? So there's a friction there that we, I think, on the rewards team did not always win out on, which is you kind of can't design anything that feels like what you just described, because then not everybody's going to have access to it, right? And now it's like a tool, and so, well, if it is a tool, should it be on a class button? Right. But then it's tough because, and we've tried to fight back on this sometimes and be like, well, but it's kind of neat to try and make some buttons that are a little more utility based or a little more interesting or a little more unique in that way, so that when you do get it, maybe it feels like, oh, well, now I have this option available to me. Right. I think we've had varying success over time with that idea. Right. But also, like you said, they also have to contribute to your power in some way. And maybe this is an issue just with like the modernization of WoW, right? Where, you know, trinkets in the ancient times, even before I started playing, had the ability to be like, you know, what's that one? There's like the mount speed one from Classic that everybody, thank you. Yep. I was like, tell me, Elder, which one is it? But shit like that, right? Where it was like, yeah, you're gonna just makes you faster, right? Because that was something that was valuable then. Where we have the burden of saying, well, everything has to be a baseline level of strength, and usually that's done by giving you primary stat or whatever, because for other goals and for other things that go into that. So I like all that stuff, and in a perfect world, that would be true. I made Sepulcher was such a. I think I said this on the last time we spoke. There are a lot of mistakes in there, but a lot of things that I really like. One of them was there was a channel on a tank trinket that feared enemies, and it didn't like fear make them run away, but it would like terror them or whatever you want to call it, like stunned them. And everyone was like putting me to the sword for putting that on a thing, and it just wasn't used for a number of reasons. But it was like, every now and then we will add like, or there's the B trinket, or no, not the B, though the B one is sick. There's a dash. There was a dash in the Rookery. There was one that just like gave you a blink. It literally, you throw down a hammer or something and then you dash to it. And every time that happens, everybody's heckles get raised because they're like, or hackles, whatever it is. Everyone gets very nervous because they're like, oh no, are we doing a thing? Or we had the Yappers trinket that was you throw a spear and then you dash to it. And everyone's like, this is going to be crazy in PvP. And they all just end up being fine, right? Like it's actually not kind of the end of the world. But if any of those were good enough that you felt you absolutely needed them for a particular dungeon, people start to sour on them, right? They stop being cool additions and they start being annoying, right? And maybe that's just the inherent tortured nature of drop chance, right? And then we go back to if everybody can buy all their gear, is anybody excited to get anything, right? And then we just get back to, well, if everybody feels they should need a fucking dash, let's make a button and give it to them that's a dash, and it's your item for the season, or it's your talent, or it's something, right? Like we should find a way to give everybody that. And so it was always a really difficult thing for me because coming from League of Legends, right, I'm used to designing items in a system where you can, somebody comes against a challenge and they spend their resource to specifically answer that problem, right? But now they're weaker in a different way, right? And that's just not how WoW works. I think it always made me sad. Max did a review of some trinkets a while ago. He read the one that's from Giesel Gigazab, which I was really sad about because I really liked it. He was like, dude, if there's ever a fight that's like really crazy 2-target cleave, this thing is going to own. And then that just didn't happen. And it's one of those things
like
where
the trinket didn't own on 2-target, or there was not a 2-target boss.
There was not. Yeah, there was basically not an extreme enough situation where that trinket would be useful because because inevitably something always escapes containment and is just broken, right? But there's something where it's like, if you want to give something a niche, you have to make it worse the rest of the time. So then you're almost demanding or rolling the dice on, is there going to be something like like if the Salhadar damage amp was on both of them at the same time, right? Or something like, the Ramornia phase, where you're hitting him and Denathrius, right? There's a world where if that trinket existed then, that people would use it because they're like, well, P2 is what's hardest for us right now, and we want to hit both of them at the same time. And while we're doing it, that's happening, right? So anyways, I hope any of this is interesting to somebody.
No, it is. It definitely is. I mean, everyone would agree, at least we would all agree, like stat sticks are like super boring. Like you can only come up with the most goated trinket idea ever if you're really creative, and some really niche ones have been like really cool. You mentioned something there about like, oh, I may make this really cool thing, but it's not for this person. I actually wanted to hear your opinion on something this patch that was like pretty divisive, but I thought was really fucking cool. Okay. I have no idea if you had anything to do with it or not, but like the mega dungeon coming back and being able to do it on hard mode for mythic track gear, which is like there's so much stakes behind doing that run every week, which you could see before it was ever released was causing a lot of people anxiety. They're like, what if I, and some of it very valid, I think, like, what if I fuck this run for my other friends and now we're just permanently behind one mythic track piece or something like that. In the race, we were practicing these on PTR the entire weekend before they came out because we felt like we just had to one-shot this, and it was like pretty difficult. Like if you didn't practice it, you could definitely wipe. But I thought like our players have a very high opinion of it. A lot of people I play with are like, this is awesome for the game. But I know there's probably a lot of people who don't feel that way, and it's because of how they interact with the game. I have no idea if you had anything to do with that, but I know rewards are somewhat
actually yes. In this specific instance, you got it. And it's funny because some of you will recall this just was true of Dawn of the Infinite. It's literally the same thing that we did in Dawn of the Infinite, and we brought it back to this one. The key,
but that one came out mid-patch.
It came out mid-patch.
Well, yes. So So I was going to say the key difference is the like queuable version that also it was in season 4. There was both either it was mid patch or it was everybody was so fucking hopped up on every other source of power that it was like doing it 10 week 1 is actually not that difficult, right? Yeah. And also I will just say again, is Dawn of the Infinite is my favorite dungeon of all time. Biased, but it's true. Part of the design philosophy of Dawn of the Infinite was to make the whole thing a hard mode, right? And then the regular version was like some of the mechanics were removed, right? I think Tazavesh's version is part of what makes the difficulty amp up, because a lot of those encounters got some fucking hands when they get a hard mode, right? Like some of those.
Oh, it's awesome. By the way.
Like I mean, I've always loved it. I've always loved Tazavesh. I had nothing to do with it. It was in the can the day I started, and I thought it was the coolest shit ever. The only thing that I did for the first run of Tazavesh was I made it so that the items you got on hard mode had the tag priceless instead of mythic, because I thought we needed a way to say that they were better, and for people to understand why their item level was higher, but they didn't come from a mythic dungeon because you technically weren't, just for reasons. And so that was another one where people were like, "Are we allowed to do that?" And now we do it all the time, and I think it's good. So yes, all that said is, there was an interest from people to say, we want Mythic Tazavesh in its standalone form, right? They didn't even necessarily want hard mode at that point, but they wanted like the full uninterrupted experience, right? Because, like when Mechagon halves are back, like you only go do half of the dungeon, or, they didn't want like you go do it and then you have to queue for the next part, you go do it. So they wanted some way of doing that. And it's funny because I got pulled into an email chain, and as far as I know, this was going on for like a month. People just like fighting back and forth, being like, if we're bringing Tazavesh back, we want people to like do it more. We want to have reasons for people to do it, especially because the encounter designers are like, if we're going to put in the work of like adding some new mechanics and like making it nice in here, like we want people to engage with it. And the kinds of things that they were proposing, I think the version of this was they were targeting something almost like a 6 or a 5 or like a little lower. And it was, they just wanted to be this like untimed dungeon crawl. And I think that is a noble goal. But when I came into that conversation, there were a lot of other stressors. I was just like, dang, that's what delves are. Like, we don't have to remake delves here. Instead, what Tazavesh is a chance for people to see the hard, difficult versions of these bosses, this cool thing that we already did, right? Like, one of the biggest boons of working on WoW is that game's been around for 20 years. Like, you have so much cool shit to just pull from, right? Especially when you can like reuse work that has already been made, or spruce it up in this case. So the proposal was just like, look, if you want people to do this over and over again, we can't give you as much crest as we did in Dawn of the Infinite. Dawn of the Infinite was, you made out like bandits because it was middle of the patch, right? It needed to be an alternative to doing your like heroic clear, like for some people, right? It's like, do I want to pug all of heroic, or do I want to go do Dawn of the Infinite and get like halfway to my crest cap, and like all of my heroic crest cap, right? Basically. So all of that said, it just came down to, this is a way to guarantee that people will be thinking about it and attempting it and trying it. And I know it's been anxiety inducing. I have some friends on the internet who have not loved wiping, specifically to Hooktail. To them, I would say skill issue and also not my fault. But in the end, I think I'm a big advocate I think there should be a way for people who do mostly dungeon content to earn mythic gear, right? I understand the many reasons. Now, hold on, Turkey, because we agree, but to a point.
Yep.
There are many reasons it cannot be uncapped, right? There are so many reasons it cannot just be, I don't even want to get into like how sales would go, right? That would be insane. But like it's already hard enough to like I think you can't do it uncapped, right? But I have been a proponent of, I've been in some proposals. I'm a strong believer that if you are essentially someone who is doing like the equivalent of old like 20s or 25s, you're doing like world first keys, whatever they are now, right? You've effectively demonstrated that you've like won the game. Like, I should give you some method of obtaining some myth gear in a way that feels still really meaningful to you, right? And I think that to me is the trick, is this feels meaningful every time to do. even if everyone in your guild or everyone in your group is geared as hell, right? You all have to lock in. You can't slouch, right? You can take breaks in between. I think that's also a big boon. You can wait for all your CDs. You can play it perfect, exactly as you want. But every time you get a myth piece, it feels like you earned it, right? And to me, that is what you need to do with Dungeons versus Raid. Because Dungeons historically have over-rewarded for less effort, right? And I don't mean like the sickos at the absolute top end, right? But if you compare especially what it used to take, I think now maybe it's a little harder, but compare what it takes to get a myth piece out of your vault for doing a dungeon versus getting a myth piece out of your vault for a raid. It's incomparable, right? The amount of effort, the amount of coordination is crazy, right? But the trade-off is that the people who are mythic raiding get that access every week, right? And they're getting more and more access over time. So to me, that then says, let the absolute best players push, or not even the absolute best. I don't want to make it sound like I think the 0.1% should get it, but like give people reasons to push higher and higher, right? Like there's a lot of reasons that this would be complicated, but in a world you could say, hey, at 15's timed, you're getting one mythic voucher, one gamble a week, right? You go into a dungeon and you press a button and your drop in that dungeon is going to be a mythic or something, right? Like some shit like that is something that would be like neat. Now I want to get KSM, I want to get KSH, I want to get, this thing. But now there's this intermediate step between this and title that says like, hey, my group might be good enough to do 15s, but we kind of need to get off our ass and feel motivated to do so. Well, now if you push it a little bit further, here's a cool reason to do so. Like that has always been a big dream of mine, is to give an avenue for people to do that. So sorry, this is a long yap on this topic, mostly to say, yes, I'm a fan of Tazavesh. I also think, yes, I think it is cool to have content that is not for you, but that there is a step to doing it. That is the other half of this, and is my biggest issue with Mythic Raid, is that, and I know this is going to be like, wah, like my guild can't do this thing. I have a friends and family guild that I've led for 5 years. I would say maybe about 10 of us could be Mythic Raider quality, maybe. But because we don't want to sit people, we're just never going to do it, right? And so it feels like you get your AOTC kill, and then the job's done, right? Like maybe you do some achievement runs or whatever, but you're done, right? Other games have this staircase of like, well, maybe I will never be challenger, but I know every single step in League of Legends I could take to get to the next thing. And to me, that's what's missing. Is Raid is missing a step in between heroic and mythic. Maybe not a whole difficulty. I'm not trying to enter that fucking discourse, but like they're missing some.
We need more difficulties.
I mean,
I think that's the main
perhaps true, but I think they're missing that step where Mythic Plus is missing the highest step. I think both of those things are missing one little piece that would make them, in my mind, perfect. But I'm one unemployed person giving you my opinion. So take that for
Scarizard, you're winning so many M+er points right now. Like
everyone's going to be so pissed at me.
Have been preaching.
They're going to be like, you went on this podcast, you talk shit about everything we're doing, and then you just said Reddit opinions at them. And I was like,
hey, these are popular opinions. Like, you are right. Like, a lot of M+ers have been wanting something to chase after it. Because, like, I don't know if you guys have seen the clear rates recently, and it's honestly really strange. So, for the past week, I believe, for M+, the most amount of keys that were being done were in the 10 to 12 range. Like anything below 10 was barren, and anything below 12 was like, just above like 12, there's some people doing it. Yeah. And it's just like kind of strange, right? Because you would expect more people to try to either push higher keys, or maybe like there'd be more players that are down there. But just like due to how the season is at the moment, there's just really not a lot of incentive to go any higher. And yeah, I mean, like that's what a lot of players want, right? Like they want to be able to play the game mode that they play, and it really sucks when you just feel like, oh man, like I'm pushing these insanely high keys. We're doing some of the hardest challenges in World of Warcraft, and we're getting nothing out of this. Like, what are we even getting out of this? Heroic loot?
Yeah.
But yeah, look at that chart right there. It is kind of insane.
Yeah, I'm happy with how the crest changes that I think happened a little bit before Undermine landed. Like, I think they've made M+ feel better for a lot of people. It also makes sense why people are mostly coalescing around 10, right? It's just where the reward point is. You see the other spike at 12 because there's, people want resilient keys. They also want their 3K mount, right? So it's like not rocket science in a sense to say like, oh, wow, look at the two biggest spikes is where the two rewards are, right? and that makes sense. But part of why I'm saying all this too is not just to say like, I'm not one revolutionary that has been cast out or whatever. Like there are a lot of people who share the opinions that I have, but I think something that I've tried to say every time I've talked about this publicly, and especially somewhere in the big rambling of the interview we had, is, WoW is a big ship that is very slow to turn, right? And it's not always slow to turn because people don't want to, right? There's just so many moving parts, right? I think, to me, I don't know if I said this last time, and if I did, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but, when cross-faction was announced, remember cross-faction guilds weren't a thing. But it was so obvious that they were going to be a thing, right? At least I feel like to anybody who was paying attention. But it both makes sense why Blizzard wouldn't announce that they would be a thing, because there's still a lot of server infrastructure shit that had to be changed to make that so. So instead, they just said, here's the version of cross-faction that can exist. Here's what we would like to do. And then you just see all the clues as the game continues to get to the point until they can confidently say, and here it is, right? And there it goes. Because there's nothing fucking worse than saying cross-faction is coming and then having to walk back and be like, nah, it's actually only half of what we said it would be. And then somebody from 2008 left a bomb in the code that means we can't do this thing for 3 more months. Shit like that. And it happens all the time. One time, no joke, this is going to sound fake, I found a number that couldn't exist. I crashed something in Shadowlands Season 4 because my upgrade paths on extending the thing that many levels, that number, a gear couldn't be that number in this expansion. If that sounds brain-breaking to you, it was brain-breaking to me. I had to call my emotional support engineer. We had to dig into it, and we found out, it was like 238 or something, or 260. It was maybe it was like 283, but it was like, nothing can be 283. So it was like, oh, okay. And then we just incremented it up 1, and it was fine. For reasons I will never understand, right? This is not, we're not working with hot young tools here, right? We're working with, it is insane. We're getting blood from a stone every fucking time. So for directional game design reasons, for tech reasons, for cultural, philosophical reasons, there's a lot of reasons that it takes a long time to get the shit moving. So to me, the best thing, this is turning into a PSA, the best thing that players can do with their voice, obviously, beyond the vote with your dollar, play when you want, don't play when you want, is notice things like, hey, I love that doing 10s feels good, but that I have a thing for 12, right? Like point out when these incentives are working for you. Let people know clearly that it's like this good, this other recent thing you did was good. If there was one step, imagine what the half step is, and then ask for that. And then be like, if this half step existed, that would be great, right? Because often players are saying, I want uncapped dinar purchase on all mythic items very deeply with my soul, and I'm going to riot until I get it. And as much as I know people want that, you're not getting it. So how are we going to meet in the middle that eventually shifts towards what people do want and what is sensible, right? I don't know. But yeah. Anyways, sorry. I'm going to keep apologizing. It's a lot of yapping.
No, it's totally fine.
Yeah. So since we were on the topic about items,
yeah, man.
How do you feel about power versus rarity nowadays? So, for example,
Am I going to be beat to death for my rare item sins? Is it finally time?
No. I was going more along the lines of Legion, right? Because so back when I played in Legion, I was playing much more casually. Well, maybe not casually because I was playing 12 hours a day, but I was.
Real quick. Okay, we will get off this fast. This is why nobody can say anything is casual. Because does casual mean low information? Does it mean low skill? Does it mean I don't take it that seriously, but I'm fucking addicted? Nobody can agree on what casual is in any game. On League, what is casual? Is it bronze? No, because that guy plays 30 hours a week, right? You're just like, this isn't anyway, sorry, please continue. It's just funny. It's funny to see it in the wild, right?
Yeah. I would say casual more along the lines of
when I was a casual
I wasn't taking the game very seriously,
a
right?
Casual addict instead of a professional one.
Yeah, I was just playing the game a shit ton, but I wasn't taking it very serious. I wasn't trying to go for any world ranks or whatever. I was just having fun. And I was having some of the best time playing Legion, right? Legion is my favorite expansion. I can't even lie about that. And a large part of it was because of which is crazy to think about. Legion was 10 years ago. What? That feels more like 5 years ago, if anything. Maybe it was past.
Don't worry, it's remakes now, baby. So it's 10 years ago and it's now.
And it's about to be classic too, which is the crazy part.
Hey, have you guys noticed they stopped playing old people music at the grocery stores? And just bangers now?
Is that true?
Yeah, it's bangers. It's hip music now at the grocery store. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's
Dude,
crazy.
by the way,
It's only the things I like now. That's insane. Yeah.
Would you guys consider Linkin Park old people music? Definitely, right?
Honey,
Depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah, I
For
gotta
all of
tell
us,
you.
the answer is no. But if you ask,
I mean, it's 100%
18-year-old,
old
Yeah,
people.
it's not up to us
Rock.
anymore. Yeah. Good Lord.
Wait,
No, sorry,
my
please.
fellow youth.
Yeah,
Yes?
please continue your Legion thing before I take.
Yeah. So Legion. Yeah. So some of what made Legion so fun was the whole doing stuff to gain power, right? Like whether it be trying really hard to just do as many world quests as possible so that you're collecting AP while having a chance at getting a legendary. And when you got that legendary, it felt really good. But at the same time, like it is an awful feeling as a competitive player if you took the game more seriously and you just couldn't acquire that piece of loot. So like how has that philosophy changed, or like I mean, has it even changed at all? Or
So
how do you even feel about it?
I'm gonna zoom out pretty high for a sec because I've had conversations about this with a lot of people that I think are much smarter than me, and I think one thing that is true about World of Warcraft that I think is solvable in game design, or at least approachable in game design, is that WoW is a very antisocial game.
That's a fact.
But furthermore, it is a game that breeds anxiety in a lot of people, right? Because there is this idea of, well, if I am not good enough, if I'm not prepared enough, right? How many times, both when I doing raid renowns, but even the cloak, right? The cloak, which was nothing, it had 6 ranks. I like blinked and it was over. I legitimately did not. I went to go turn in my little thingies before raid, and I was like, "The fuck, it's over!" Like, what do you mean? Like, but every time one of these things happens, like if you again, Wowhead comments are cesspool. Shout out to my Wowhead commenters. Get therapy. But like a lot of those. A lot of the people, if you go look in these places, you'll find people who say, you know what they say? And people mean this from their heart. They'll roll their eyes and say, great, now someone's going to inspect to see if my cloak's high enough level before I can get into a group. Where does that come from, right? It comes from the fact that WoW currently is big enough that it gives people anxiety about the feeling of being behind or bad, but not because they're like, I feel bad that I'm playing bad. I don't want you to see me being bad. I don't want to be acknowledged as bad by you. I don't want to be shamed by you, and I don't want to feel shamed by making your group worse because I'm there, right? So now this is very philosophical, and you can't say a video game can solve all these problems, right? But if you think about Legion, and I think Legion was maybe right when the rubber was hitting the road on some of this stuff, right? I think Max has talked about this a few times where it's like the legendary acquisition stuff is not bad if you weren't ever having the expectation of getting one, right? But you see stuff like Fearlath or the Evoker thing, and everybody is frothing at the mouth because the existence of it means I must have it, and not having it is bad, right? Not having it tricks my brain into saying I'm having less fun, but it makes me feel bad that you have to play with me because I suck ass because I don't have the thing yet, right? Which is why I finally got the Embers to Fearlath, and they are sitting in my bag. I finally got them on the last week of the patch, and I looked the person who made Fearlath in the eyes, and I told him I was not going to make it because I wanted the journey to sit with me and not the actual result of the thing. Because it did feel emotionally. I'm not saying that these things haven't had issues, right? But all of this is to say, right? If you take it back to what you're saying about Legion, there is a fundamental shift in the way that people play games. Period, along with how people play WoW, that I think needs to be addressed. Part of it is on them individually. Part of it is on WoW, right? Because the upside to something like artifact power is that nobody can take that away from you. On your own time, when you're doing your own shit, right? Every little bit of investment you made into your character mattered. When you got the little talents on my twin prince blades or whatever, I pogged because I knew not everybody had it. Not because I'm like, I wanted it to be exclusive, but it said something about me. It said something about my level of commitment. And when someone in my raid group didn't have their thing maxed out, I didn't think, wow, what a fucking slob loser who expects to be carried. It made me think, oh, they're not where I'm at. Can I help them get where I'm at, right? And maybe I'm a normal person. But I'm just saying that there's a level to that, which is you are allowing people to lay claim to their progress in a way that feels good. But the flip side of that is, again, as you've noted, I think as everybody noted, if you did that today, people would say, every week I have to do my bare minimum thing, because if I don't do it, I don't meet the bar. And that matters perhaps for competitive players. And so maybe on some level, there's too many avenues for competition. Maybe that's an issue, right? Because we've had systems that have this and then have catch up, but now we've hit this weird kind of soup of, well, there's a thing that that competitive players need to do, but as you have all noted, compared to the past, there's like nothing you really have to do in the first week of a patch to get the concept of being raid ready is basically non-existent, right? So I think we've hit a point where people have less bad feelings, but they have less good feelings. But the inherent thing that haunts them, the anxiety that a lot of the stuff that is happening in WoW, hasn't gone away. So what have we really gained is my feeling, right? Is we have gained less big markers of personal success that make people excited at the cost of what, right? At the gain of what? And so looping this a little bit into the Tazavesh thing, right? If somebody in my life links me the Tazavesh achievement, I don't think, fuck, now I'm one myth piece behind, right? I'm like, good job. Holy shit. I know you and your group were trying that for weeks. Neat, right? You did the thing, you know? And to me, it's a little thing. Or the Kaiveza thing, right? If you can beat the question mark Kaiveza, especially early, you feel great about that. You're like, whoa, that's awesome. And now you're going to be sufficiently rewarded for it. And so I have a fear that maybe we're in a place where we can't get back to those kinds of systems that allow every tier of player to feel that level of pride or investment. And so all they are getting is numbness or negativity. Sorry, that was really high level, but you said the Legion words. And so to me, that's the core struggle is, do you want the majority of your players to be able to feel something? Or do you want the majority of your players to try and feel less bad, right? And it's tough because WoW's bigger than it has ever been in terms of content. Maybe not in terms of player size, though I know it's been doing well in the last few years. And there are so many different people now. And importantly, the players who were competitive then are parents now, right? Like the same group of people is changing within itself. So it's really, really fucking hard to hit the moving target on what should any of this stuff be, right? But my gut is that I think we can stand to have more things like a Legion artifact grind and then try to theorize ways to protect against the social issues that are plaguing the game of people being like kicked because of something like is there a pugging rework? That sounds insane. It sounds like a Gas League thing for me to say, but envision it for a second, right? Like I try to imagine what if I said, hey, there were some of you may remember this, because it still exists now. You get more Valor Stones. You used to get more Valor if somebody's score went up, right? And it was like cool. There was a time for a brief period of time. It was like neat. Well, if it's score for somebody, it's good for all of us because we're all going to get something out of this, right? Could there be a system, this is very ham-fisted, that said, hey, if you invite and you bring this person who is not finished into your group, you all get a little bit extra, right? We all, the rising tide lifts all boats, something like that, right? Something that actually makes somebody, instead of saying, hey, Dragnos, I just got back into the game, can you fucking carry me? To saying like, almost like the new player referral bonuses, right? It's like, hey, dude, I have my golden ticket because I just started playing. Can we spend it together, right? Like, again, rewards brain for this. It's probably much deeper. It's probably for much smarter people to solve. But that to me is the thing that I kind of wish would happen more. Because now, as is, right, it's like how I don't envy them ever trying to bring another legendary back, right? A thing that should be cool. And both of those quest lines for the two legendaries that exist in Dragonflight were neat. Anybody who got to see them, there was cool stuff there. But how many people just skipped fast forward on them because they didn't have their Bindings of Ragnaros moment or whatever the fuck, because they're like, oh, thank God, it's my thing. Right, it's my item. It just didn't feel like anything else. And how much of that is social pressure versus game pressure, right? Game is not what am I saying? Game is not immune to those criticisms, but it also isn't the sole culprit of them.
Yeah, going back to what you were saying about, I fear it's going to be too hard for World of Warcraft to go down that path. I actually feel that, because nowadays, whenever I'm getting loot, it's more like, oh, great, what a relief. Now I can finally play a video game. I got my Astro Antenna or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But I actually managed to recapture
Antenna
that
game.
feeling when PoE 2 came out. And when I was playing PoE 2, like I got so addicted to that game for a solid month or two. And
Yeah.
anytime I was getting a super rare piece of loot or like something that had insane rolls, it felt so good. And the fact that the game was able to, well, I mean, to be fair, it is a completely different game. Like ARPGs are all about that dopamine, and
Yeah.
they were able to just relive that feeling within me, which felt pretty good. But at the same time, like I know that like nowadays, if they try to do that in World of Warcraft, it's just really rough because like we're just too conditioned to having the best in slot pieces or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's just it's a constant theme. I mean, it comes back to the talents and stuff and the trinkets as well, right? Where it's like the cooler something is, and the fact that you don't get it for free means the worse that it feels for everybody who doesn't immediately get it, right? And there's just like, no matter how, every point of improvement on the one axis is making it worse for the people on the other. I don't know. That's a very difficult problem to solve. But I think I agree with you that like it's better to try and fix that downside than to just be like, okay, let's just not design cool stuff anymore, and that fixes the problem, because it doesn't, like you said, people still feel bad if the best trinket is not exciting but it's still powerful. You still feel bad not getting it, right? Like antenna, I don't know, that's not a particularly compelling item, but people feel bad that they don't have it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think on a smaller level, this is a very brief soapbox against stat sticks. I think it's important for people to have access to stats because it's an important part of how your like damage manifests in the game. My issue with it is that it's really hard to make them visually exciting, right? Honestly, it's that if your best thing in a patch is, you know, the time when everyone was like the friendship trinket from Yappers, which was like everybody has a different attunement or whatever. It's like cool. You know, we got to do a little bit of a story moment where it's like you go press the item on the stone or whatever, and then like that was kind of neat. But beyond that, it's not that exciting visually, right? Where if you look at Grief Torch or Beacon or any of these things, right, which is like, oh, and there's a big moment. Those are things that stick with you, and that's what I really wish would happen more. So it's like I don't want to eradicate all stat sticks. Antenna is, at least for me, a bit of a medium where there's something cute happening and there's a little bit of gameplay going on, right? But you don't have to engage with any of it necessarily. But overall, yeah, I kind of think it's like, well, one of the only ways you stop that is you stop making stat sticks that good. Because every patch, I was always advocating for like wherever we balance our stat sticks, nerf them by 10 to 20% before they go live, and they still ended up the best thing, right? Because again, player skill, the timing, the combining, the multiplying always makes up for it, man. Like to me, yeah, a short version is just overtune the damage effects, undertune the stat effects, and they will end up even, right? They will end up normal. Yappers had the anvil trinket that I was really, really proud of that ended up like really good for a lot of melee classes. And it was like a total accident that happened. And I was like, we should be doing that every time. We should like make some of these things competitive, like a Grief Torch or an anvil or whatever. Because in the end, you know, your warlock for this patch with this tier set, you know, that always changes in development with this emergent build is going to be like, shit, I need 66% crit, and then God himself will smite my enemies. And the only way to get 66% crit is to get the blue thing, right? To get the stat stick. And so you'll do it no matter what. So I think that stuff, it usually will shake out. But I care about people having just more connections to their itemization. And visuals are a good way to do that. So sorry, that's a minor little soapbox. I know everybody, we've been talking for so long. I have no idea how long this is going. And I appreciate everyone for being patient with me.
Hell yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we could talk for many hours, but we do need to wrap up.
Yeah, we can also
now,
do this again.
So.
I think
that would be great. Yeah,
I was going to say this is two things. One, this is for everybody who said they wanted a podcast. Now you all get to have it, and you're going to be like, shit, never mind, we didn't want it. It would take it back. The second thing is, if we do this again, Dorky, you needed a camera just for me. Because I need to bring you in more.
Sounds good.
I need to just, nobody else can see it. Just do it on my fucking FaceTime me, and I'll set it right here, and then I'll know anytime Dorky wants to say a thing about Legion, I'll be like,
yeah, if you guys want access to that, you have to subscribe to
That's
the Patreon
true.
or over OnlyFans or, you know, whatever we might have.
we would make so much money immediately.
Yeah, or the top 3 owners of PoddyC merch that you got at poddy.com that launched today in this very episode perhaps gets a free FaceTime to work.
W shout out.
That's a good idea. That's a good.
It's
idea.
incredible. Nobody would know who you were.
Tickets in there.
They would pick up
It's
the
not
phone.
actually happening, by the way.
I know, but they would pick up the phone and they would be like, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
Yeah.
And then they would hang up, and so that's how you get away with it.
All right. Well, enjoy your unemployment, Scarizard, and if you end up, hopefully we just get to have you on soon to talk more WoW stuff. But if you ever also, do something in the future and you want us to help promote your new gig or a new game or anything like that, give us a call.
Yeah, sure thing. Look, if the people will it, I will come back and yell about unions and philosophy and whatever the fuck. But yeah, thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Do I do a potty goodbye? Do I get to potty?
Hit it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Potty goodbye, everybody.
Potty goodbye.
Potty farewell.
Potty
Potty farewell. Fuck, I fucked it.